Chapter 1548. King Jiang Xianxiabingyu had told everyone in the Nine Saints' Heavenly Gate about Miefun. Of course, she didn't tell anyone about Zhuowen's reward. She had only told her master, the Empyrean sage, about bringing Zhuowen into the Burning Sky Plaza. The Empyrean sage had naturally agreed. After all, the strength that Miefun had displayed was enough to make the Empyrean sage want to build a good relationship with someone like that. You must be Miefun? Thank you for taking care of Bingyu. I am the sect master of the Nine Saints' Heavenly Gate, the Empyrean sage. At that moment, a middle-aged man with a dignified appearance slowly walked over. He had a purple-gold crown on his head, and his eyes were as bright as the stars. This middle-aged man was the sect master of the Nine Saints' Heavenly Gate, the Empyrean sage. The Empyrean sage had a smile on his face as he stared at Zhuowen. His actions were quite friendly. Zhuowen was stunned by the Empyrean sage's words. He hadn't expected the Empyrean sage to say something like that. It seemed that he had never taken care of Xiabingyu before. Instead, he had asked Xiabingyu to do many things for him. However, looking at the Empyrean sage's expression, Zhuowen knew that the Empyrean sage was trying to get close to him. It was likely that the conflict between him and Prince Raven and Jiang Liqing had already spread throughout the Burning Sky City. Therefore, the Empyrean sage might have realized that he was extraordinary, which was why he was trying to get close to him. When the Empyrean sage spoke to Zhuowen, he would look at Loz, who was standing beside Zhuowen, with some fear in his eyes. The Empyrean sage didn't keep his news a secret. It was said that during the conflict at the Burning Flames restaurant, this burly man called Loz had even thrown the sword elder of the Jiangxian clan out of the restaurant like trash. The Empyrean saint guessed that Loz was a heavenly saint after all. Even the Nine Saints' Heavenly Gate wouldn't dare to provoke an expert of this level. It was precisely because he was wary of Loz that the Empyrean sage was so friendly with the young man in front of him. To be protected by such an expert, this young man must have an extraordinary background. I wonder where young Master Miefun learned from. Who is your master? Empyrean sage suddenly asked. I'm just a wandering cloud and a wild crane. I don't have a master. Zhuowen replied indifferently. The Empyrean saint's face stiffened. He knew that Zhuowen didn't want to reveal his family's background, so he didn't pursue the matter. Whoosh! Whoosh! The moment the Nine Saints' Heavenly Gate's treasure boat took off, rays of light also swept out from various parts of Burning Sky City. Treasure boats flew, strange birds flew, long swords slashed the sky, and ferocious beasts roared. In any case, there were all kinds of mounts flying high into the sky. Of course, the purpose of these mounts was surprisingly the same. They were all flying towards the center of Burning Sky City, which was the Burning Sky Plaza, where the Burning Sky Hall was located. Look, that's the Nine Saints' Heavenly Gate's treasure boat. When the Nine Saints' Heavenly Gate's treasure boat flew to the entrance of the plaza, it immediately attracted the envious gazes of the surrounding cultivators. Afterward, the Empyrean saint led the crowd down the treasure boat. Under the respectful lead of a Burning Heaven sect disciple, they entered the Burning Sky Plaza. The Burning Sky Plaza was extremely large. At this moment, there were rows of tables arranged one after another. Moreover, these weren't ordinary tables. Each table occupied an area of 200 to 300 square meters. This kind of table was in the shape of an arc, extending to both sides. It was more than enough to accommodate dozens of people, and it was completely capable of accommodating the disciples brought by those big forces. After the Burning Heaven sect disciple led the Nine Saints' Heavenly Gates group to a table near the edge of the plaza, he respectfully retreated. During this period, the mounts of the other major forces flew into the plaza from time to time. The Burning Heaven sect's disciples, who were already waiting at the entrance, led them to their seats in the plaza. Of course, these major forces weren't as famous as the Nine Saints' Heavenly Gate. Therefore, they didn't cause a huge commotion. The Dark Crow sect has also arrived. After a short while, the surrounding atmosphere suddenly became much more lively. Soon after, a huge black shadow flew over from the horizon. When the black shadow flew closer, the crowd finally saw the true appearance of the black shadow. It was actually a black crow that was hundreds of feet long. On the back of the black crow, there were figures dressed in black robes. These figures' black robes were undoubtedly embroidered with the pattern of the Dark Crow sect. This was the unique symbol of the Dark Crow sect. Standing at the front of the Black Crow was a man wearing a black crow mask. However, due to the mask, the crowd couldn't see the man's true appearance clearly. However, the warriors below recognized the man wearing the black crow mask. He was the sect master of the Dark Crow sect, Wuxia. He was an extremely mysterious and powerful saint. In the beginning, the Dark Crow sect wasn't very famous. However, in the hands of Wuxia, it only took him 100 years to make the Dark Crow sect a famous sect in the southern barbarian capital. Zhuowen slowly raised his head and looked at Wuxia. The aura on Wuxia's body was very obscure. It seemed that he had used some kind of concealment technique to hide his cultivation and aura. Standing behind Wuxia was Prince Raven. At this moment, Prince Raven slowly turned his head and glanced at the table where the Nine Saints' heavenly gate was located. His eyes suddenly narrowed, and the aura in his body suddenly became somewhat violent. Yin, what's wrong? Wuxia also felt the abnormality behind him. He turned his head slightly and asked in an indifferent voice. Prince Raven took a deep breath and said respectfully, "Sect Master, I mentioned Miefun to you before. You should know that Miefun is now in the Nine Saints' heavenly gate." Oh, Wuxia was startled. He turned his head slightly and looked at the table where the Nine Saints' heavenly gate was located. His pair of emotionless and cold eyes stared at Zhuowen. His gray pupils were like that of a poisonous snake looking at its prey. It was extremely vicious. Zhuowen was awe-inspiring and fearless. He looked straight at Wuxia's emotionless and cold eyes. His face was calm and composed. What an interesting little fellow. I wonder if this little fellow will still be able to remain so calm when I dig out its heart? Wuxia smiled coldly. The corners of his mouth curled up in a chilling arc. Many of the disciples of the Dark Crow sect behind him were shocked. Although Wuxia was the sect master of the Dark Crow sect, he was cruel and merciless. Moreover, he liked to use perverted torture to deal with disobedient disciples. Some disciples even chose to commit suicide because they could not stand Wuxia's torture. It could be said that the disciples of the Dark Crow sect feared Wuxia more than they respected him. Zhuowen, it seems like Wuxia has his eyes on you. You have to be careful. Wuxia is a pervert who eats people without spitting out their bones. Xiaobingyu whispered to Zhuowen. Her beautiful eyes were filled with disgust as she looked at Wuxia's direction. I naturally know about this, Zhuowen said with a smile. Looking at Zhuowen's appearance, Xiaobingyu shook her head. She knew that Zhuowen did not listen to her words. However, she did not say anything when she thought about how powerful Zhuowen and Lo's were. Although Wuxia was powerful, the mysterious young man in front of her was not an easy nut to crack. After the Dark Crow sect had arrived at the Burning Sky Square, the group that followed behind them made many of the warriors go crazy. It's the Jiangxian family. Look, isn't that Prince Jiangxian? He is a legendary figure. It is said that he has been in seclusion in the Jiangxian family for a long time. It seems like the Burning Heaven sect has a lot of face. A long rainbow flashed across the sky and formed a long bridge. On the other side of the long bridge, a group of people slowly walked over. This group of people seemed to be walking slowly. However, it was as if they were teleporting. Step by step, they quickly approached the Burning Heaven Square. At the front of this group of people, there was a middle-aged man with a tall crown on his head. He was wearing a feathered robe. This middle-aged man had a sword on his waist. His whole person was like a noble in the secular world. His temperament was very high. The little virtuous King Jiang Liqing, as well as the silent sword elder, silently followed behind King Jiangxian. Coincidentally, the Jiangxian family's seat was right next to the Nine Saint Heavenly Gate. The two seats were only inches apart. When Prince Jiangxian led the Jiangxian family to the Nine Saint Heavenly Gate seat, he stopped and cupped his hands at the Saint of Tianyu. Brother Tianyu, we haven't seen each other for hundreds of years. How have you been? The Saint of Tianyu had already stood up and said cheerfully, It's the same as usual. However, I see that Brother Jiangxian's complexion is as red as jade. I'm afraid that you have gained something from your seclusion in the past 1,000 years? At this moment, the Saint of Tianyu's eyes flickered. He seemed to be probing. In the past, Prince Jiangxian was extremely outstanding. His cultivation had been soaring and his strength had even surpassed the Saint of Tianyu. He had reached the peak of the Yin Sky Saint realm. Nearly 1,000 years ago, Prince Jiangxian had gone into seclusion in order to break through the shackles and reach the Yang Sky Saint realm. However, the Saint of Tianyu could not see through Prince Jiangxian's aura. He knew that Prince Jiangxian might have gained something. I'm not that talented, but I did gain something. Prince Jiangxian laughed. The Saint of Tianyu's eyes narrowed. In the end, he smiled and said, as expected of the most brilliant genius in the history of the Jiangxian family. Brother Jiangxian is worthy of this title. I admire you. Brother Tianyu, you're too humble. If you weren't worried about the sect affairs, you could have broken through the shackles of so many years like me. Prince Jiangxian said humbly. The Saint of Tianyu waved his hand and smiled bitterly. Brother Jiangxian, you must be joking. In terms of talent, I'm far inferior to you. Prince Jiangxian smiled noncommittally. Then, his gaze fell on Zhuowen and Lo's, who were sitting at the side of the 9 Saint Heavenly Gate seats. The smile on his face faded. You're called Miefun, right? I've heard about you. You were able to defeat Li Qing at such a young age. Your strength and talent are indisputable. Chapter 1549. Jade Slip Message. Of course, if you think you can do whatever you want just because you have the support of a strong cultivator, I advise you to give up on that thought. It's better for the younger generation to be respectful and follow the Tao. After King Jiangxian finished speaking, he lifted his foot and planned to walk to the side of the seats. King Jiangxian, are we related? An indifferent voice sounded out. Immediately, King Jiangxian's foot stiffened. He turned his head and looked at Zhuowen. Indeed, we are not related, but... King Jiangxian slowly said. Before he could finish, he was interrupted by Zhuowen. Since we are not related, do you have the right to lecture me? Do you think you have the right to lecture me just because you broke through the shackles and reached the Sun Sky Saint stage? I think you are the one who thinks you are infallible. Do you think you are the best in the world after you broke through? At this point, Zhuowen looked at Jiangxian indifferently and continued. Little did you know that in my eyes, you are nothing but a joke. The moment those words came out, both the Jiangxian clan and the 9 Saints Heavenly Gate fell into silence as everyone stared blankly at Zhuowen. No one would have thought that the young man called Miefun would dare to refute King Jiangxian. He was so bold that it was shocking. Brother Miefun, are you crazy? Xia Bingyu quickly grabbed Zhuowen's arm, trying to pull him back and stop Zhuowen from continuing. However, the moment she tried to pull Zhuowen, Xia Bingyu was shocked to find that Zhuowen was as immovable as a mountain. No matter how hard she tried to pull him, the latter did not budge at all. Miefun, you are too presumptuous. How dare you speak so rudely? Kneel down and apologize immediately. King Jiang Liqing stepped forward and stared coldly at Zhuowen. His tone was extremely unfriendly. King Jiangxian was the head of the Jiangxian clan and Jiang Liqing's idol when he was young. Now that Zhuowen was slandering King Jiangxian in front of him, how could Jiang Liqing endure it? However, King Jiangxianwang waved his hand to stop Jiang Liqing. He looked deeply at Zhuowen and said, You are indeed arrogant enough. I wonder if you have the qualifications to be arrogant. Zhuowen didn't say anything, but Lo stood in front of King Jiangxian. His tower-like body was like a pillar that connected the heavens and the earth as he looked down at King Jiangxian. You don't have to worry about that. Miefun naturally has the right to be arrogant. If you don't like it, we can exchange blows. Lo's grinned and slowly clenched his fists. The space around his palms crackled, as if it had completely collapsed. It was an extremely frightening sight. Looking at this scene, King Jiangxian's eyes slowly narrowed, revealing a trace of caution. Today is a joyous occasion for the Burning Heaven sect. The two of you don't have to be so serious, right? Tianyu Sage hurriedly mediated. Brother Tianyu is right. Today is a joyous occasion for the Burning Heaven sect. Fenju, let's have a good talk next time. King Jiangxian smiled faintly, and immediately led the disciples of the Jiangxian clan to the side seats. Just now, King Jiangxian seemed to have some conflict with Miefun. Unfortunately, there was no conflict between the two. Not far from the seats of the Nine Saints' heavenly gate, Wuxia gloomily watched the scene that had just happened and said indifferently. Prince Raven, who was sitting beside Wuxia, also revealed a trace of pity on his face. Later, when the great feast of the world begins, Zhou Tianzong will bring out the burning heaven and boiling sea. This will be of great help to your cultivation. You have to make good use of it. Wuxia suddenly said to Prince Raven. Prince Raven's eyes narrowed and said, Burning heaven and boiling sea? I remember that the Burning Heaven sect hasn't burned the sky and boiling sea for a long time, right? This time, they are going to burn the sky and boiling sea again. This will consume a lot of energy and resources, right? Hehe. Do you think that old man Zhou Tianzong brought out the burning heaven and boiling sea for the major forces of the southern barbarian lands? You are wrong. This burning heaven and boiling sea is most likely prepared for the young palace master of the Snow Palace, Bathing Zhe. Wuxia's gaze was indifferent as he continued. It is said that Bathing Zhe has the bloodline of the Black Tortoise. He is extremely talented, and his strength is terrifying. He is only 30 years old, but his cultivation is already at the peak of the profound sage realm. He is a rare genius of the Snow Palace. I don't need to explain the effects of the burning heaven and boiling sea in detail. This thing is prepared for Bathing Zhe to break through to the heaven sage realm. However, if you don't compete with him, you can still drink a cup of soup later. Hearing this, Prince Raven revealed a look of amazement. He was also shocked by Bathing Zhe's talent. He was only 30 years old, but he was already at the peak of the profound sage realm. Coupled with the bloodline of the Black Tortoise, he probably had the strength of a heavenly sage realm expert. He was definitely a monstrous genius. A monstrous genius like Bathing Zhe could be called a monstrous genius, even in the central barbarian lands. It is said that the Holy Maiden of the Burning Heaven sect has the bloodline of the Phoenix. Wouldn't that make her as monstrous as Bathing Zhe? Prince Raven asked. He only knew that the Burning Heaven sect had a Holy Maiden, but that Holy Maiden was extremely mysterious and rarely seen. He also didn't know the specific cultivation realm of that Holy Maiden. The Burning Heaven sect's Holy Maiden is called Mu Chenxua. It is said that she had been training in the eastern barbarian lands for some time, and was only recently brought back by the Burning Heaven sect. As for the specific situation, I am not particularly clear, Wuxia said indifferently. Prince Raven nodded slightly, and didn't continue to ask. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. More and more teams from the major forces entered the Burning Heaven Square. The originally empty square was now crowded with people, bustling with activity. In the seats of the Nine Saints' heavenly gate, Zhuan silently sat at the back, looking down at his right hand. At this moment, there was a crystal-clear jade slip in his hand. Quietly staring at the jade slip in his hand, Zhuan fell into deep thought. His brows furrowed slightly, as if he had encountered some kind of problem. Is this person very important to you? Suddenly, Xiaobingyu sat next to Zhuan. Looking at Zhuan's thoughtful appearance, she couldn't help but ask. Zhuan glanced at Xiaobingyu, and finally nodded slightly. Very important. She is an extremely important person in my life. She is also the person I have been thinking about day and night for more than 20 years. Hearing Zhuan's dreamlike words, Xiaobingyu's beautiful eyes dimmed a little. However, she quickly forced herself to be calm. With a wave of her folding fan, she pressed it against Zhuan's chest and smiled. This is the first time I've seen such a heavy expression on your face. Cheer up. Zhuan smiled and slowly moved Xiaobingyu's folding fan away. I have some matters to attend to. I will be back in a while. Looking at Zhuan's departing figure, Xiaobingyu was stunned. She didn't know why, but she really didn't want Zhuan to leave. It was as if she would never see him again once Zhuan left. What's wrong with me? Xiaobingyu wiped the corner of her eyes, and couldn't help but ask. In a corner far away from the burning sky plaza, there were very few people here. There were almost no cultivators here. Zhuan pointed at the void, and created an isolation restriction around him. Then, he took out the blue dragon token and summoned 4 figures. Zhuowen. These 4 people looked at Zhuowen with grave expressions. These 4 people were none other than Long Xiaotian, Yanji, Jiang Xian and Wenbai. Among these 4 people, Long Xiaotian and Yanji were both at the Skying Saint stage, while Jiang Xian and Wenbai were both at the Glimpse Profound Saint stage. Their strength was extraordinary. Father, have you seen the information in the jade slip? Zhuowen waved his right hand and handed the jade slip to Long Xiaotian. Long Xiaotian nodded cautiously and said in a deep voice, Shi Yao is in the burning flame pool on the top floor of the burning flame tower. Father, you once said that you would bring Mother back personally. I know you will do it personally. I believe you this time. Zhuowen walked in front of Long Xiaotian and patted Long Xiaotian's shoulder heavily. Thousands of words were finally explained by this palm. Haha, believe in your father. I once said that I would bring Shi Yao back personally. I will do what I say. Long Xiaotian laughed heartily. Then he looked at Zhuowen and said, Zhuowen, be careful. I know you will bring that girl Chen Shui back. The corners of Zhuowen's mouth raised slightly, and he said with a smile, Of course. I will bring Chen Shui back personally. After saying this, Zhuowen looked at Yanji, Jiang Xian and Wenbai. He bowed and said cautiously, Martial granduncles, I'll have to trouble you this time. Yanji and the other 2 helped Zhuowen up and waved their hands. Zhuowen, you don't need to say this to us. Speaking of which, us 3 old fellows have benefited a lot from your Azure Dragon Hall. This time, we came out to help Brother Xiaotian. Naturally, we won't decline our responsibility. Yanji and the other 2 stayed in the Azure Dragon Hall. Not only did they enjoy the benefits of the flow of time, but Zhuowen also took out immortal pills from time to time for them to use for cultivation. Moreover, Zhuowen also took out 2 profound sacred artifacts and 1 young sky sacred artifact, and gave them to Yanji and the other 2. After receiving so many benefits from Zhuowen, Yanji and the other 2 were actually quite embarrassed. At the same time, they also felt that following Zhuowen to the southern wilderness was worth it. Old Yan, let's go. Also, Zhuowen, you must be careful. Most of the experts of the Burning Heaven sect are probably gathered in the Burning Heaven Plaza. Don't be reckless in everything. Long Xiaotian looked deeply at Zhuowen. Finally, he took Yanji and the other 2 and quietly left the place. They rushed towards the Burning Flame Tower, on the other side of the Burning Heaven Plaza. Because today was a joyous occasion for the Burning Heaven sect, the defense of the Burning Flame Tower was not as strict as usual. Zhuowen knew that now was the best time to let Long Xiaotian go to the Burning Flame Tower. Zhuowen withdrew his gaze and immediately left the place. Miefan, where did you go just now? You were gone for so long. When Zhuowen returned to his seat, Xia Bingyu suddenly came up to him. Her beautiful eyes contained a trace of relief, as if she had breathed a sigh of relief when Zhuowen returned. I just went out for a stroll, Zhuowen said with a smile. Zhuowen's appearance caused Xia Bingyu to be extremely suspicious. However, she did not ask about it. Whoosh. Chapter 1550. Tiger Collapsing Mountain Boom. A terrifying rumbling sound that was like the 9 heavens' profound thunder exploded in the sky. It was as if the entire Burning Heaven city was undergoing a terrifying lightning tribulation at this moment. Amidst the terrifying ear-piercing sound, a tiger's roar could be faintly heard. It was as if the Tiger King had descended from the mountain and was displaying his domineering aura. Everyone raised their heads and saw a huge white tiger silhouette leaping out of the void from the depths of the sky. The huge tiger claw stepped on the void, and wherever it passed, it would cause an extremely terrifying collapse of space. Due to the collapsing force, countless black holes formed in the surroundings. The white tiger illusionary figure instantly rushed to the sky above the burning sky square. A frightening storm that soared to the sky swept across the horizon, causing the spectating martial artists around the burning sky square to involuntarily retreat. Awa! The white tiger landed at the entrance of the Burning Heaven Plaza and roared towards the sky, stimulating the eardrums of countless martial warriors. Soon after, it collapsed into countless specks of light. After the specks of light dissipated, a group of figures appeared. The person in the lead was an old man with white hair and a white beard. He wore a white robe and had a youthful complexion. Although the old man had white hair, his complexion was rosy, and he looked like a robust man in his 30s. Where's Zhou Tianzong? My fierce tiger sect rushed over from the western region. Why didn't Zhou Tianzong come out to welcome us? The white-robed old man with white hair and a youthful complexion shouted with a rough voice. His voice was like thunder as it exploded in the entire Burning Heaven Plaza. It's actually the overlord of the western region, the Fierce Tiger Sect. I never thought that the Burning Heaven Sect would invite the Fierce Tiger Sect over. Hearing the white-robed old man's words, the surrounding people all revealed surprised expressions. Soon after, an uproar was set off. The position of the Fierce Tiger Sect in the western region was equivalent to the position of the Burning Heaven Sect in the southern Barbarian region. They were powerful overlords of a region. Brother Tiger, it's been many years since we last met. How have you been? A hearty voice sounded out. Soon after, a slender figure walked out from the depths of the Burning Heaven Hall. It was the sect master of the Burning Heaven Sect, Zhou Tianzong. At this moment, Zhou Tianzong was wearing a purple robe. The surface of the robe was burning with a strange purple flame. Following behind Zhou Tianzong were the 18 black flame envoys. Zhou Tianzong had a carefree smile on his face. With a flash of purple flames, he appeared in front of the white-robed old man, as if he had teleported. Zhou Tianzong's speed was too fast. No one could even see his figure. They could only see the sparks of the purple flames as he passed by. This white-robed old man was the sect leader of the Ferocious Tiger Sect. His name was Hu Bengshan. At this moment, the corner of Hu Bengshan's mouth curled up as he smiled. Thanks to you. I trust you have been well since we last met. Zhou Tianzong nodded slightly and looked behind Hu Collapsing Mountain. There was a young man with a body as sturdy as a tiger. He smiled and said, "This must be the young lord of the Ferocious Tiger Sect, Hu Lai, right? To be able to cultivate to the peak of the profound sage realm at such a young age is truly commendable." Hu Lai was 12 feet tall, and he looked like a small mountain. His skin was like bronze, and it emitted a white light. On his firm cheeks there was a tiger-shaped imprint. His entire person looked like a fierce tiger. Uncle Zhou is overpraising me. Speaking of which, where is that kid Yin Ruhua? That kid's cultivation wasn't weak even before he became a saint. I wonder how his cultivation is now. I can have a good spar with him, Hu Lai said with a grin. Zhou Tianzong's face stiffened, and he said indifferently, Ruhua has some matters to attend to and isn't in the sect. If you want to spar with him, I'm afraid you will be disappointed. There weren't many people in the Burning Heaven City who knew about Yin Ruhua's death. This matter wasn't something to be proud of, so Zhou Tianzong naturally couldn't announce that Yin Ruhua had been killed. The death of the dignified holy son of the Burning Heaven Sect was an extremely shameful matter. Zhou Tianzong wouldn't announce such a shameful matter. Hu Lai shrugged and whispered in surprise, "Is that so? That's really a pity." Zhou Tianzong smiled and said, "Come with me, Ferocious Tiger Sect. I've already prepared your seats in the Burning Heaven Hall." Hu Hanshan nodded and followed Zhou Tianzong to the Burning Heaven Hall. Without a doubt, the Ferocious Tiger Sect's seat was one of the best in the Burning Heaven Plaza. Whether it was the area or the decorations, it was much better than the seats of the other factions. Moreover, it was located in the best location. If the other faction's seats were ordinary seats, then the Ferocious Tiger Sect's seat was a VIP seat. However, the other factions didn't feel anything wrong. As the overlord of the Western region, the Ferocious Tiger Sect's background wasn't necessarily inferior to the Burning Heaven Sect. It was natural for Zhou Tianzong to treat them as VIP. Sect Master Zhou, I've heard that the Burning Heaven Sect's holy daughter possesses the Phoenix bloodline. She's devastatingly beautiful and peerless. Why hasn't the holy daughter come out? Hu Lai couldn't help but ask curiously the moment he sat down. The Ferocious Tiger Sect didn't really like the marriage between the Snow Palace and the Burning Heaven Sect. After all, the Burning Heaven Sect and the Snow Palace were both overlords of their respective regions. The marriage between the two would definitely threaten the Ferocious Tiger Sect. Hehe, Chen Shui will naturally come out later. Nephew, there's no need to be too anxious, Zhou Tianzong said with a smile. Hearing this, Hu Lai didn't ask any further. Hu Benshan, who was beside him, cupped his hands and said, "Brother Zhou, since you've invited my ferocious tiger sect, then you should have invited that fellow Sapphire Shore, right?" Zhou Tianzong shook his head and said, "I didn't invite the Blue Dragon Hall. Brother Tiger probably doesn't know about the matters of the Eastern Lands, right?" What happened in the Eastern Lands?" Hu Benshan asked curiously. "The Eastern Lands has changed hands. The Blue Dragon Hall has been destroyed." Zhou Tianzong softly spat out these words, but it made Hu Benshan reveal a stunned expression. Soon after, he said in disbelief, "The Blue Dragon Hall has been destroyed? How is that possible? Although the Blue Dragon Hall is the weakest force in the 4 major regions, it's still an overlord force in the Eastern Lands. I'm afraid there's no force in the Eastern Lands that can threaten the Blue Dragon Hall, right? You should be familiar with that force. It's called Ryuka," Zhou Tianzong said indifferently. "Ryuka? Could it be that Ryuka from 10,000 years ago? I heard that the Blue Dragon Hall has been hunting down the descendants of Ryuka for the past 10,000 years, killing them all. It should be because the Ryuka has become a thing of the past. How could they overthrow the Blue Dragon Hall that's at its peak?" Hu Benshan couldn't help but be shocked. He naturally knew about the Ryuka, but it was a force that had been annihilated in the river of history. 10,000 years later, it actually rose again and overthrew the Blue Dragon Hall. This was truly unbelievable. Perhaps Brother Tiger doesn't know? A peerless genius appeared among the descendants of the Ryuka. His name is Zhuowen, and he is known as Longwen in Ryuka. This child had a heaven-defying opportunity and obtained an immortal sacred artifact. It was with that immortal sacred artifact that he gathered the descendants of the Ryuka and strengthened them. In the end, he overthrew the Blue Dragon Hall. Zhou Tianzong sighed. At this moment, both Hu Benshan and Hu Lai were moved, especially Hu Benshan. He couldn't help but exclaim, "Immortal sacred artifact? How is that possible? Long Wen's opportunity is so heaven-defying that he actually obtained a supreme treasure, like an immortal sacred artifact?" Zhou Tianzong glanced at Hu Benshan and suddenly said, "The Blue Dragon Hall is one of the overlords of the 4 major regions after all. It has a good relationship with the Southern Barbarian, the Western regions, and the Northern regions. We don't disturb each other. However, now that the Blue Dragon Hall has been destroyed, this is a provocation to our 4 major regions. I believe Brother Tiger also has the same idea, right?" Zhou Tianzong said indifferently, "Oh, Brother Zhou, what do you mean?" Hu Benshan narrowed his eyes. To conquer the Eastern Lands and give an explanation to the destroyed Blue Dragon Hall, as well as to ensure that the dignity of our 4 major regions cannot be blasphemed, the Snow Palace has already decided to unite with my Burning Heaven sect. After this marriage, we will go to the Eastern Lands to conquer the Ryuka. I believe the Fierce Tiger sect won't mind going with us, right?" At this point, Zhou Tianzong stared at Hu Benshan with a trace of a smile on his face. He knew that even Hu Benshan couldn't help but be attracted to a supreme treasure, like an immortal sacred artifact. Hu Benshan narrowed his eyes and pondered for a moment before he said with a smile, "Brother Zhou is right. The Ryuka is already history. The true master of the Eastern Lands should be the Blue Dragon Hall. The Ryuka has risen from the ashes. It's really hateful. I, Hu Benshan, will naturally not shirk my responsibility to go with Brother Zhou to conquer the Ryuka. With Brother Tiger's help, it's like adding wings to a tiger. After this marriage, let's go to the Eastern Lands together. At that time, we will let the Ryuka know that there are some things that can't be replaced by his misdeeds. We will definitely clear the Blue Dragon Hall's name." Zhou Tianzong laughed. "Of course, as for the details, let's wait for Sister Jibai to arrive," Zhou Tianzong said as he looked at the horizon. At some point in time, dense white snow had begun to fall from the sky. Suddenly, the Burning Heaven City, which was burning with monstrous flames, was covered in snow. This strange scene immediately attracted the attention of many people. "What's going on? There is no snow in the Burning Heaven City all year round. Why is there such an abnormal snowfall today?" Snowflakes fell from the sky and landed on the flames of the Burning Heaven City. However, they were not melted by the high temperature of the flames. Instead, they piled up on the streets, on the roofs, and on the water surface. At this moment, the burning heaven city was covered in snow. At this moment, the burning heaven city formed a dreamlike scenery. Many women revealed infatuated expressions when they saw this scene. Even the men could not help but stop and watch, admiring this unconcealable scene. The snow palace is coming, Zhou Tianzong muttered as he looked at the horizon. Hu Benshan also looked at the same direction. There an ice carriage carved out of ice and snow was walking through the air. At the front of the ice carriage, there were 4 crystal-clear ice horses. The sound of horse hooves resounded throughout the sky. At this moment, the ice and snow became thicker. Whoosh! The speed of the ice carriage was extremely fast. It walked through the air and arrived above the burning heaven square like lightning. The area of the ice carriage was huge. The shape of the ice carriage was like a hexagonal pavilion. The 4 sides were covered by gauze. It swayed with the wind and snowflakes whistled. Chapter 1551. Burning the sky and boiling the sea. The woman looked to be in her late 20s. She had white eyebrows and white hair. Her eyes were icy blue, and her delicate face was like a piece of black ice that had not melted for 10,000 years. She exuded a cold and unapproachable aura. What a cold woman! In the seats of the 9 Saints' heavenly gate, Zhuowen raised his head and stared at the beauty in a long dress at the front of the ice carriage. He was surprised. The woman exuded a cold aura. Even when Zhuowen looked at her from afar, he could feel a chill in his heart. He knew that it was the woman's unique temperament that made him feel that way. She is the palace master of the snow palace, Yuanji Bai. She is as cold as ice and unapproachable. She is a heavenly saint expert at the same level as the sect leader of the Burning Heaven sect and the sect leader of the Ferocious Tiger sect. Xia Bingyu walked slowly to Zhuowen's side. When she saw that Zhuowen was paying attention to Yuanji Bai on the ice carriage, she opened her folding fan and introduced her to him. Then, the young man behind Yuanji Bai should be the young palace master of the Snow Palace, Xiaozhe? Zhuowen stared at the slender young man behind Yuanji Bai. The young man's white hair was like needles, standing straight up like icicles hanging down from the top of an ice cave. His eyes were as white as frost, and they were filled with coldness and indifference. The young man was as tall as a pine tree, standing behind Yuanji Bai. He carried a large, crystal-clear halberd on his back. The large halberd was snow-white, as if it was made of ice and snow. He stood there, surrounded by countless ice and snow. If one took a closer look, one could vaguely see the shadow of a black tortoise floating in the surrounding ice and snow. Without a doubt, the handsome young man was none other than the young palace master of the Snow Palace, Xiaozhe. Yes, that is indeed Xiaozhe. It is said that he has the bloodline of the black tortoise. It is rumored in the Burning Heaven City that Xiaozhe and the saintess of the Burning Heaven sect, Mu Qinxue, are a match made in heaven. The former has the bloodline of the black tortoise, while the latter has the bloodline of the phoenix. It's said that once warriors with these 2 bloodlines combine, the energy they can unleash is extremely terrifying. They can unleash strength that far surpasses their own realm. Before Xia Bingyu could finish her words, Zhuowen, who was standing beside her, suddenly clenched his fist, causing Xia Bingyu to shut her mouth. Her beautiful eyes looked towards Zhuowen. At that moment, Zhuowen's expression was somewhat ferocious. A tyrannical aura burst out from his body. It was as if there was a primordial beast hidden in Zhuowen's body that could explode at any moment. Bullshit! How can Bathing Lake be worthy of Mu Qinxue? In my opinion, he is not qualified at all, Zhuowen said coldly. Xia Bingyu's beautiful eyes stared at Zhuowen with a complicated expression. However, she did not reply. She was extremely astonished at Zhuowen's abnormal behavior. How do you know that Xiaozhe is not worthy of Mu Qinxue? Xia Bingyu could not help but ask. In any case, he is not worthy. Very soon, I will prove it to you. After Zhuowen indifferently said those words, he sat down in his seat and did not say anything else. Seeing Zhuowen's appearance, Xia Bingyu also fell silent. She could faintly feel that the current Zhuowen was very different from usual. Therefore, she did not intend to disturb Zhuowen. After the ice carriage of the Snow Palace landed in the Burning Heaven Plaza, Zhou Tianzong also personally came over. He brought Yuanji Bai, Mu Yuza, and the other disciples of the Snow Palace over, and arranged them in the best seats in the burning heaven hall. During this time, many disciples of other forces came over from the horizon. After all the forces had arrived, Zhou Tianzong slowly walked forward. Zhou Tianzong looked around the entire burning heaven plaza, and said in a clear voice, "Thank you all for coming to the Burning Heaven sect to witness the marriage alliance between our Burning Heaven sect and the Snow Palace. Sect Master is too polite. Sect Master is too polite. It is our honor to be invited to participate in this marriage alliance." In the plaza, many leaders of forces stood up and politely cupped their hands to return Zhou Tianzong's greeting. Their attitude was extremely respectful. The corner of Zhou Tianzong's mouth slightly raised. Shortly after, he pointed to the seats of the Snow Palace and said with a smile, "This marriage alliance between our Burning Heaven sect's Holy Maiden and the Snow Palace's young Palace Master is a grand occasion. As the main character of this marriage alliance, I invite the young Palace Master Xiaozhe to let everyone get to know each other." After he finished speaking, Xiaozhe, whose hair was as white as needles, slowly stepped forward. As he stepped out, wind and snow rushed into the sky. Above his head, the illusory image of a black tortoise wantonly intertwined, and the roar of a beast resounded through the sky. Under the terrifying roar of a beast, many of the surrounding cultivators couldn't help but cover their ears and retreat, their eyes filled with shock. This Xiaozhe is indeed the most talented disciple of the Snow Palace. With his cultivation at the peak of the profound sage realm, and the power of the black tortoise bloodline, he can instantly kill any saint at the peak of the profound sage realm. I'm afraid that even an ordinary sky saint might not be his opponent, right? The roar of the black tortoise was so powerful that even though the seats of the 9 saints' heavenly sect were rather far from the burning heaven hall, many of the disciples of the 9 saints' heavenly sect were deeply affected. Even Xia Bingyu couldn't help but take a few steps back. However, Xia Bingyu soon noticed that Zhuowen, who was standing not far away from her, didn't move at all, like an ancient mountain. I wonder if Miafun or the young palace master of the Snow Palace, Xiaozhe, is stronger? When she saw Zhuowen, who was as immovable as a mountain, Xia Bingyu couldn't help but think of Miafun's previous actions. Prince Raven and Jiang Liqing had both suffered a great loss at the hands of Miafun, and even Elder Jian didn't dare to casually make a move against him. It was precisely because of these events that Miafun was extremely mysterious in Xia Bingyu's heart. At this moment, seeing that Zhuowen didn't move under Xiaozhe's power, she couldn't help but compare Miafun to Xiaozhe. The illusory image of the black tortoise above his head, surrounded by ice and snow, made Xiaozhe look like a god or a demon. He stood there with his back straight, as if he could support the entire sky. He turned his head to look at Zhou Tianzong and said respectfully, "Sect Master Zhou, when will the saintess arrive?" At this point, Xiaozhe's eyes couldn't help but reveal a trace of passion. The Phoenix bloodline and his black tortoise bloodline were very compatible bloodlines. The two bloodlines complemented each other, and if they were combined, it would bring benefits that were hard to hide for both of them. Moreover, Xiaozhe also knew some inside information. It said that if the two bloodlines could be combined, the offspring would have both bloodlines. This kind of offspring would be brought in by the family in the Central Plains. Perhaps he could rely on this kind of offspring to be accepted as a core disciple of that family, obtaining even more resources. Zhou Tianzong revealed a faint smile and said in a low voice, "Nephew, don't be anxious. Before Chen Shui arrives, I want to give you a gift." "Gift?" Xiaozhe asked in a surprised voice. "Burning the heavens and boiling the seas." Zhou Tianzong softly said these 4 words. Xiaozhe's pupils couldn't help shrinking. He had already heard about burning the heavens and boiling the seas. It said that deep under the burning heaven plaza, there was a god-descending lava vein. To put it bluntly, this god-descending lava vein was underground magma. But the magma under the burning heaven plaza was not normal. It contained a large amount of energy. The unique architecture of the burning heaven city had an inseparable connection with this god-descending lava vein. It was also because of this god-descending lava vein that the burning heaven sect was able to stand tall, becoming bigger and bigger. As for burning the heavens and boiling the seas, It was a kind of ritual of the Burning Heaven sect. This ritual was the supreme method of the Burning Heaven sect. It activated the large array around the god-descending lava vein, and with this large array as a foundation, the god-descending lava vein would be drawn out. The sea of magma would soar into the sky like it was burning the sky, hence the name Burning the Heavens and Boiling the Seas. Inside the Burning the Heavens and Boiling the Seas, there would be a long-time-old wine. If a cultivator could obtain this wine and drink it, they would have a large chance of breaking through their shackles and advancing to a new realm. In the past, the sect master of the Burning Heaven sect, Zhou Tianzong, had found a 5,000-year-old wine during the Burning the Heavens and Boiling the Seas ceremony. After drinking it, he broke through from the peak of the profound sage realm to the heaven sage realm in one fell swoop. This kind of event caused a great sensation at that time, and it also made countless forces in the southern wilderness discover the great benefits of the Burning the Heavens and Boiling the Seas. However, since that time, the Burning Heaven sect had never opened the Burning the Heavens and Boiling the Seas again, which made some forces who were looking forward to it quite disappointed. Could it be that the Burning the Heavens and Boiling the Seas this time will contain a 5,000-year-old wine? Xiao Zhe's eyes lit up as he sent a sound transmission in a low voice. Yes, the 5,000-year-old wine this time will belong to you. After drinking it, you will be able to break through your shackles and become a heaven sage in a short period of time. Before that, I will arrange for Chen Shui to come out. At that time, you two can properly meet. Saying this, the corners of Zhou Tianzong's mouth revealed a calm smile, as if everything was under his control. All right, I will listen to the sect master's arrangements. Xiao Zhe did not expect that Zhou Tianzong would open the Burning the Heavens and Boiling the Seas for him. This made him feel flattered and somewhat excited. It had been some time since he had advanced to the peak of the profound sage realm. If he did not accumulate and cultivate for a long time, it would take him thousands of years to break through to the heaven sage realm on his own. But now, if he could obtain the 5,000-year-old wine in the Burning the Heavens and Boiling the Seas, breaking through to the heaven sage realm would not be a problem. Seeing that Xiao Zhe had agreed, Zhou Tianzong also nodded. He had already discussed the Burning the Heavens and Boiling the Seas with Yuan Jibai. As long as Xiao Zhe had no objections, he could directly take action and summon the Burning the Heavens and Boiling the Seas. Zhou Tianzong floated in the sky, looking down at the people in the square, and said in a clear voice, "This marriage is a grand occasion of the 4 major territories, and it is also a happy occasion. Therefore, I have decided to celebrate this happy occasion and prepare to open the Burning the Heavens and Boiling the Seas." As soon as these words came out, the entire Burning Heaven square fell into silence, and then burst into an uproar. After such a long time, the Burning Heaven sect was finally ready to open the Burning the Heavens and Boiling the Seas again, and this time, it was in front of the countless forces of the southern wilderness. There was no doubt that the Burning Heaven sect would open the Burning the Heavens and Boiling the Seas to face the many major forces of the southern wilderness, and not just the Burning Heaven sect. Chapter 1552. Holy Maiden 18 Black Flame Envoys get into formation. Zhou Tianzong shouted loudly. Suddenly, the 18 strange figures shrouded in black flames soared into the sky. Shortly after, they formed a series of seals in the air. Following that, flames began to rise from the ground of the Burning Heaven Plaza. These flames spread across the ground of the Burning Heaven Plaza in a unique trajectory. Then, following a specific path, they enveloped the entire plaza. However, these flames were extremely intelligent. As long as it was a seat in the plaza, they would go around it. Although most of the seats were located in the plaza, no one was injured by the sudden appearance of these flames. However, when the flames finally spread across the entire plaza, if one looked down from above, they would discover that the trajectory of these flames was that of a phoenix spreading its wings. Zhou Tianzong landed in front of the 18 black flame envoys and shouted, "Holy Maiden, please! Holy Maiden, please!" The 18 black flame envoys shouted in unison. Their voices were like thunder, reverberating in the air. Squeak! A resounding phoenix cry soared into the sky. From a luxurious pavilion not far away from the burning heaven plaza, an enormous phoenix phantom soared into the sky, shaking the 9 heavens as it looked down on the world. Under the enormous phoenix shadow, there was a bridal sedan burning with blazing flames floating in the air. On the 4 sides of the bridal sedan, there were 4 tall maids wearing flame-colored robes, carrying the bridal sedan as they walked in the air. Is that the Holy Maiden of the Burning Heaven sect? I wonder what the mysterious Holy Maiden of the Burning Heaven sect looks like. The bridal sedan flying in the air attracted the gazes of countless cultivators present. Everyone was looking forward to seeing the beautiful figure in the bridal sedan. The Snow Palace's young palace master stood up abruptly. His heroic and handsome gaze landed on the bridal sedan. His originally cold and indifferent face revealed an expression of anticipation. Hulai also stood up. He shook his head slightly and said, "The Holy Maiden of the Burning Heaven sect must be incomparably beautiful. Unfortunately, the flowers were planted in the wrong soil." Hulai indifferently glanced at Hulai and said, "Brother Hu, do you think that this palace master is not worthy of the Holy Maiden?" Hulai mischievously smiled and said, "I do think so. In my opinion, you are indeed not worthy of the Holy Maiden." Hearing these words, Yuze was neither angry nor annoyed. He calmly said, "Whether I am worthy or not is not up to you to decide. If Brother Hu feels unconvinced, after the burning heavens and boiling sea comes out, you can compete with me for that 5,000-year-old wine. At that time, you will know whether or not I am worthy of the Holy Maiden." Hulai narrowed his eyes and said in a cold voice, "Looking at you, you're very confident." Bathing Lake didn't say anything else. His gaze landed on the bridal sedan, revealing a hint of eagerness. He was not Burning Heaven's Holy Maiden. He was Holy Maiden of Heaven. He only Heaven too. He was the Phoenix and the Phoenix. The fact that Xiaozhe was able to cultivate to the peak of the profound sage realm was enough to show how firm his will and Dao heart were. Naturally, he wouldn't lose himself to women. The marriage between him and the Burning Heaven Holy Maiden was not because of feelings, but because of benefits. It could allow him to reach a higher level and have a better future. It was bustling with activity coming and going. Marrying a woman whom he had never met and whom he had no feelings for the sake of great benefits, was just a small matter to Hulai. In the seats of the 9 Saints' heavenly gate, Zhuowen slightly raised his head and stared at the flaming sedan. His eyes narrowed into a dangerous arc. He clenched his fists, revealing the restlessness in his heart. Xia Bingyu, who was standing beside Zhuowen, also felt the former's strange state. Her beautiful eyes slightly narrowed. This was the first time she had seen the calm and composed youth in front of her reveal such a strange state. Whoosh! The phantom of the phoenix swept through the void. As if it was burning the heavens, its might soaring to the heavens. In the end, the phantom of the phoenix landed on the burning heaven square. Zhou Tianzong took a step forward and said to the sedan with a smile, "Chen Shui, I will leave the last step of opening the burning heaven and boiling sea to you." "Yes." A cold voice that did not contain any emotions came from the sedan. Following that, the curtain in front of the sedan was lifted and flames swept across the sky. A beautiful figure wearing a long phoenix brocade dress stepped on the flames and appeared in front of everyone's eyes. When this beautiful figure finally appeared in front of everyone's eyes, everyone held their breaths. There were even some people who were stunned on the spot. This beautiful figure was wrapped in a phoenix brocade dress and a white gauze dress, revealing the beautiful lines of her neck and clearly visible collarbones. The dress was like snow, and the moonlight flowed on the ground. It was more than 3 feet long, making her walk even more graceful and beautiful. Her hair was tied up with a hairband and a phoenix hairpin. A strand of hair hung in front of her chest. There was a thin layer of makeup which only added to the color. The faint redness on her cheeks created a kind of delicate beauty that was like a flower petal. She was like a phoenix spreading its wings in the wind, but also like a clear and pure ice. Under the sparkling and translucent feet of this beautiful figure, a 3-meter-wide fire lotus slowly bloomed. So beautiful. Among the stunned crowd, There were people who whispered to themselves and involuntarily praised. Even the young palace master of the Snow Palace, and the young master of the ferocious tiger sect, who were unable to shift their gazes away for a long time after seeing this beautiful figure. Mu Qinxue was simply too beautiful. She was so beautiful that she was like a fairy who did not eat fireworks in the mortal world. Xia Bingyu was already beautiful and charming enough, but in front of this beautiful figure, she still paled in comparison. Zhuowen frowned slightly. His gaze was fixed on this beautiful figure. For some reason, the Mu Qinxue in front of him gave him a strange feeling. This feeling was very inexplicable, but it really appeared in his heart. At this moment, Mu Qinxue stepped on the ground and landed in the air above the huge phoenix phantom. Then, her jade-like hands continuously pointed as her red lips lightly opened, as if she was chanting some kind of profound chant. Yeah. The phoenix phantom stretched its neck and let out a long cry. Then it fell from the sky like a meteorite and finally smashed into the Burning Sky Plaza. However, the many seats in the Burning Sky Plaza were not affected at all. It was as if the phoenix phantom was just transparent and passed through their bodies. When the phoenix phantom finally entered the Burning Sky Plaza, the ground of the plaza began to tremble violently. Then the trajectory of the flame started to crack. Boom. Boom. In the end, the ground of the Burning Sky Plaza cracked into countless pieces. Every piece corresponded to a seat. These pieces were like small islands that floated in the air, layer upon layer. It was a spectacular sight. In the seats of the Nine Saints' Heavenly Gate, many disciples were shocked. They had not expected the ground of the Burning Sky Plaza to crack into pieces. However, it was fortunate that the pieces that carried their seats were suspended in the air by some mysterious force. Therefore, the disciples of the Nine Saints' Heavenly Gate quickly calmed down. Look below. A disciple of the Nine Saints' Heavenly Gate stood at the edge of the crack and shouted as he pointed below. Zhuowen and Xia Bingyu followed the voice and came to the edge of the crack. When they looked down, they were shocked to discover that the Burning Sky Plaza was no longer there. Instead, it had collapsed into a huge abyss-like hole. In the depths of the void, countless streams of magma surged like numerous enormous fire pythons that grew and multiplied endlessly. Yeah. In the sky above the terrifying magma, the phoenix phantom continued to cry. A pair of phoenix claws seemed to cover the sky. When the claws struck out, the magma surged. In the end, the phoenix once again stretched its neck and let out a long cry. With a flap of its wings, it soared up and instantly flew out of the bottom of the hole. Rumble! The moment the phoenix flew out, the magma underground turned into a terrifying river that soared into the sky, following closely behind the phoenix phantom. This scene was as if the phoenix was leading the magma underground to soar into the sky. Splash! Endless magma rushed out from the ground and stretched across the vast sky of the Burning Sky Hall. A scalding temperature spread out, causing many cultivators around the plaza to feel their mouths and tongues dry. The magma continued for an incense stick's worth of time before it finally stopped. In the vast sky, tens of thousands of miles were covered by the scalding magma. Such a large area of magma was like a vast ocean that seemed to burn the entire sky. It was a magnificent sight. At this moment, the countless flames of the burning heaven sect paled in comparison to the sea of magma that covered the entire sky. In the burning sky city, countless cultivators raised their heads to look at the burning sky and boiling sea. Their hearts trembled as a trace of reverence appeared in their hearts. The entire city was boiling because of this. Is this the burning sky and boiling sea of the burning heaven sect? Xia Bingyu looked up at the magnificent scene in the vast sky with shock in her beautiful eyes. It was the first time she had seen such a magnificent scene. Bingyu and all of you, an excellent wine called the Burning Flame Nectar will appear in the burning sky and boiling sea. This nectar has the powerful effect of increasing your saint power. Generally, the older the burning flame nectar, the stronger the effect of increasing your saint power. The last time the burning sky and boiling sea opened, Zhou Tianzong, who was still a young man, obtained a 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar and drank it, breaking through to the sky in saint realm. So, as long as you work hard, You may be able to find your own opportunity in the burning sky and boiling sea. The Empyrean saint said excitedly to the disciples of the 9 saints, heavenly sect behind him. A 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar can actually allow Zhou Tianzong, who was at the peak of the profound saint realm, to break through to the skyine saint realm? The effect is actually so good? Zhuan was also shocked. His gaze also became much more fervent. Ever since his cultivation had broken through to the profound glimpse saint realm, there had been no further movement. Zhuan knew that if he did not encounter any special opportunities, it would take a long time for him to break through to the next level. But now, he knew that the burning sky and boiling sea was an opportunity for him to break through. Chapter 1553. Don't know each other. This is our burning heaven sect's burning sky and boiling sea. I believe that everyone should be familiar with the benefits of the burning sky and boiling sea, right? Zhou Tianzong landed on the roof of the burning heaven hall and stared at the countless fragments floating in the air as he spoke in a clear voice. Who doesn't know about the burning heaven sect's burning sky and boiling sea? Of course we know about it. This time, we have to thank Sect Master Zhou for developing the burning sky and boiling sea for us to compete with. The leaders of the various large forces floating above the fragments all cupped their hands and smiled at Zhou Tianzong with fervent gazes. The burning sky and boiling sea contains burning flame nectar. This thing has undeniable benefits for profound sages. Of course, only the younger generation can enter the burning sky and boiling sea. Seniors, don't try to sneak in. Otherwise, don't blame me, Zhou Tianzong, for being impolite. Zhou Tianzong had a smile at the corner of his mouth. However, his tone was extremely cold, causing many of the older generation experts who were eager to give it a try. They were like deflated balloons. Whoosh! In the sky, the image of a gigantic phoenix flew past and stopped in front of the burning sky palace. Mu Qinshui walked down step by step, and the 4 maids behind her respectfully followed behind her. Qinshui, I am the young palace master of the Snow Palace, Xiaozhe. I am also your fiancé. Xiaozhe is honored to meet you for the first time. Xiaozhe slowly walked towards Mu Qinshui and extended his right hand. His ice-cold face revealed a smile as his handsome eyes stared at the beauty in front of him. Mu Qinshui indifferently glanced at Xiaozhe and gently nodded. She passed by him and landed not far away from Zhou Tianzong. She had no intention of paying any attention to Xiaozhe. Xiaozhe's extended hand immediately froze in the air. The smile at the corner of his mouth also completely froze. Haha, Xiaozhe, aren't you ashamed? Calling yourself the Holy Maiden's fiancé, your skin is really thick. Now that the Holy Maiden is ignoring you, you are just imagining things. Hu Lai laughed and walked into the bathing swamp. Yu Yin's eyes were gloomy, but he quickly calmed down and said indifferently, Sect Master's order, the matchmaker's words, this marriage is inevitable. My union with Mu Qinshui is inevitable. Even if we have no feelings for each other, it won't hinder the result of our union. Hu Lai narrowed his eyes and coldly snorted. You are really a profit-seeking fellow. As long as it is a benefit, I think that you can abandon anything, right? Don't tell me Brother Tiger will let his emotions get the better of him? Living in this world, if you don't act for the sake of profit, you will eventually be gnawed away until even your bones are gone. Bathing Lake didn't refute. Tiger Break said indifferently, I'm not like you, completely selfish. If the Holy Maiden doesn't have any feelings for me, I won't be like you, sticking to her like a piece of sticky candy. Perhaps. Bathing Swamp looked up at the burning sky and boiling sea and continued, Brother Tiger, the 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar is the dowry of the burning heaven sect. I hope that you won't fight with me for it. Among the younger generation of the various factions, Bathing Swamp didn't take them seriously. Only Hu Lai before him could pose a threat to him, which was why he brought it up. Hu Lai grinned and said, Bathing Swamp, didn't you boast that you have the Black Tortoise bloodline, extremely high talent and unparalleled strength? Are you afraid that you will lose if you fight with me? Bathing Swamp shook his head and said, I'm not afraid that I will lose. I'm afraid that I will not know how to control my strength and beat you up miserably. At that time, your ferocious tiger sect will not look good. Hulai narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "You are thinking too much. Even if you beat me up miserably, my ferocious tiger sect won't say anything. Moreover, you will have to beat me up miserably first. Of course, I don't think that you will have such an opportunity." Bathing Swamp didn't say anything else. He paid attention to the changes in the burning sky and boiling sea. At this moment, the vast sea of magma in the sky began to surge violently, creating waves tens of thousands of feet high. Within the waves, there were several sparkling and translucent fiery red crystals. If one looked carefully, one would discover that the fiery red crystals contained a fiery red liquid. Could it be that the crystals contain the burning flame nectar? Some sharp-eyed people quickly noticed the liquid within the crystals and couldn't help but exclaim, "The burning flame nectar is in the burning sky and boiling sea. If you want it, go ahead and fight for it," Zhou Tianzong said in a clear voice. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As soon as Zhou Tianzong's voice fell, countless figures shot out from the seats floating in the air and rushed into the sky. They were densely packed like locusts passing through the sky. There were at least 100 major factions invited by the Burning Heaven sect this time. Moreover, each faction brought not 1 or 2 disciples, but more than a dozen. In total, there were 1 to 2,000 juniors. In the eyes of the crowd, it was not particularly strange that so many figures could appear in an instant. "Brother Miefan, follow me into the burning sky and boiling sea. This way we can take care of each other, right?" Xia Bingyu said with a smile as she stared at Zhuowen with her beautiful eyes. Zhuowen was stunned, but he shook his head and said, "You go in with your brothers first. I'll go in later." Xia Bingyu didn't expect Zhuowen to reject her flatly. She was a little annoyed and said with a cold snort, "You really don't know how to appreciate my kindness. I'm ignoring you." With that, Xia Bingyu stomped her foot and led several maids into the burning sky and boiling sea with the disciples of the 9 Saints Heavenly Sect led by Han Yu. The reason why Zhuowen didn't enter the burning sky and boiling sea was mainly because the young palace master of the Snow Palace, Xiao Zhe, also didn't enter. At this moment, Zhou Tianzong was standing side by side with Xiao Zhe, as if he was transmitting something to him. Mu Qinxue stood behind Zhou Tianzong with a cold expression, as if she wasn't interested in anything. "Chen Shui," Zhuowen muttered in a low voice. He took a step forward and instantly flew towards the burning sky hall. "Brother Miefan, where are you going?" The Empyrean Saint didn't pay attention for a moment. When he saw Zhuowen flying towards the burning sky hall, he was instantly shocked. As for Lowe's, he naturally followed closely behind Zhuowen. Zhuowen didn't pay attention to the shocked Empyrean Saint. When he finally landed on the burning sky hall, he finally attracted the attention of the Burning Heaven sect, Snow Palace, and Ferocious Tiger sect. "Who are you?" Zhou Tianzong asked with a frown. "I'm Miefan. I've heard of the Burning Heaven sect's Holy Maiden's name, so I've specially come to Burning Sky City to see the Holy Maiden's face. Of course, if I can get closer to her, I'd be more than happy to." Zhuowen's lips curled up slightly as he lightly spat out these words. Xiao Zhe's face immediately turned cold when he heard these words. Mu Qinxue was his fiancée. Now that this unknown youth had come and said such presumptuous words, Xiao Zhe naturally felt very uncomfortable in his heart. On the other hand, Hulai's eyes were filled with ridicule as he crossed his arms. The sudden appearance of this youth had piqued Hulai's interest. "Oh, you're Miefan? I've heard of you from the sect's elders." Zhou Tianzong sized up Zhuowen from head to toe. The youth in front of him had a sickly pale face and a slender figure, standing proudly like a bamboo. Back then, Zhuowen's incident at the Burning Flames restaurant had been reported to the sect by the restaurant's managing elder. Zhou Tianzong had also paid attention to this Miefan. After all, it was said that the Lowe's by Miefan's side had the strength of a heavenly saint. Even the sword elder of the Jiangxian family had been defeated by him in one move. From this, it could be seen that Lowe's strength was extraordinary, and to be able to have such an expert protecting him, the youth in front of him must have an extraordinary background. However, as he investigated, Zhou Tianzong discovered that Miefan's origin was extremely mysterious. Even the Burning Heaven sect couldn't find out anything about him. Moreover, the name Miefan made Zhou Tianzong slightly unhappy. After all, Miefan seemed to have the meaning of destroying the Burning Heaven sect. It was precisely because of these reasons that Zhou Tianzong had such a deep impression of Miefan. Now that Miefan had announced his name, he immediately recognized him. It's my honor to be recognized by the Burning Heaven sect's sect master. I wonder if I can meet the saintess? Zhuowen asked with a smile. Zhou Tianzong narrowed his eyes, but Xiao Zhe, who was beside him, coldly snorted and said, "Who do you think you are? What qualifications do you have to meet the saintess?" After all, Mu Chenxue was Xiao Zhe's fiancé in name. Now, this youth who had suddenly appeared wanted to meet Mu Chenxue. Moreover, he didn't put Xiao Zhe in his eyes at all. This was too arrogant. How could Xiao Zhe tolerate this? Whether I meet the saintess or not doesn't seem to have anything to do with you, right? Moreover, whether I can meet the saintess or not isn't something you can decide, right? It's something that the saintess herself decides, Zhuowen said unhurriedly. How presumptuous. I'm Chenxue's fiancé. Who do you think you are? Without my permission, don't even think about meeting her. Get out of here as soon as possible. Xiao Zhe was a little unhappy. However, not long after he finished speaking, a fiery red figure slowly swept past him and finally landed in front of Zhuowen. Mu Chenxue's beautiful eyes stared straight into Zhuowen's eyes. Her beautiful eyebrows slightly knitted together as she muttered in a low voice. What a familiar gaze. I think I've seen it somewhere before, but I can't remember where. At this moment, Xiao Zhe seemed to have been petrified. It was clearly Miefan who came to meet Mu Chenxue. But Mu Chenxue was one step ahead of him. She stood in front of Miefan and stared straight at him. Mu Chenxue's actions were considered intimate in Xiao Zhe's eyes. After all, Mu Chenxue had previously ignored her fiancé. Little bastard, you've gone too far. How dare you be so presumptuous to my fiancé in front of me? The veins on Xiao Zhe's forehead bulged, and his snow-white hair stood on end. He took a step forward and the wind and snow filled the sky. The shadow of the black tortoise surged as he planned to attack Zhuowen. Squeak! Chapter 1554. Killing intent pervaded boom. When the black tortoise silhouette collided with the phoenix silhouette, the two silhouettes exploded with an ear-piercing sound. Following that, the black tortoise silhouette shrieked and collapsed. On the other hand, the phoenix silhouette was full of vitality. What a rich bloodline power. Zhou Tianzong, your Burning Heaven sect's Mu Chenxue's phoenix bloodline is so rich. I really didn't expect it. Looking at the beautiful figure surrounded by the phoenix silhouette, the palace master of the Snow Palace, Yuan Jibai, couldn't help but exclaim emotionally. The black tortoise bloodline in Shi Yin's body wasn't weak either. However, the black tortoise silhouette was actually defeated by Mu Chenxue's phoenix silhouette. Without a doubt, the bloodline power of the two was not on the same level. The corner of Zhou Tianzong's mouth raised slightly. He was also a little surprised. Although he knew that Mu Chenxue had the phoenix bloodline in her body, he didn't know how rich it was. However, after clashing with Shi Yin's black tortoise bloodline, Zhou Tianzong finally realized that the phoenix bloodline in Mu Chenxue's body wasn't ordinary. This made Zhou Tianzong secretly happy. Not only Yuan Jibai, but even the ferocious tiger sect master, Hu Benshan, was secretly shocked. Of course, the most unbelievable thing was still Shi Yin's. He also couldn't believe that his bloodline power was actually inferior to Mu Chenxue's. Although he was far from using his full strength, in terms of bloodline, he was indeed weaker than Mu Chenxue by a level. Moreover, what made Shi Yin's even more furious was that Mu Chenxue actually attacked her fiancé because of Miefan. No matter how calm Shi Yin's was, he was so angry that he lost his mind at this moment. You're all courting death. Shi Yin's roared. His snow-white hair stood straight, and the wind and snow fluttered. His holy aura soared into the sky, as if even the sky was about to collapse. Nephew, don't be rash. However, just as Shi Yin's was about to explode, Zhou Tianzong gently placed his right hand on Shi Yin's shoulder, calming him down. Sect Master Yu. Yu Shizhe frowned and looked at Zhou Tianzong. Mu Chinxue was his fiancée after all. How could he bear to see her fighting with a stranger? What is yours will always be yours. 5,000 years' worth of burning flame nectar should be formed in the burning sky and boiling sea. I don't think you should miss out on such a thing. After the burning of the heavens and boiling of the seas, if you're lucky enough to break through to the heavenly saint realm, wouldn't that be wonderful? When the time comes, the marriage between our two families will naturally be settled. As for those unrelated people, they will always be unrelated people. Zhou Tianzong used secret voice sending to calm Yu Zhe down. He looked coldly at Mie Fun and Mu Chinxue in front of him, and finally nodded. Then I will enter the burning sky and boiling sea first. Thanks to the sect leader's auspicious words, I will be able to obtain the 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar. I believe you will be able to get it, Zhou Tianzong said with a smile. Whoosh! Yu Zhe did not reply. He glanced at Zhuowen and said coldly, hiding behind a woman, how promising. After he finished speaking, Xiao Zhe stomped his right foot and shot into the vast sky. He entered the sea of magma that stretched as far as the eye could see. Hulai was not to be outdone. The tiger roars in his body formed a forest, and like a fierce tiger, he rushed into the depths of the sea of magma. The scene in the burning heaven hall was naturally seen by many of the leaders of the forces in the seats. They all pointed at Mie Fun and had a new understanding of his audacity. Isn't that Mie Fun the mysterious youth who threw Prince Raven and Jiang Liqing out of the burning flame restaurant? Yes, it should be the same person. Speaking of which, this Mie Fun is really bold. He actually asked to see the holy maiden in front of the burning heaven sect, the ferocious tiger sect, and the snow palace. Voices of surprise could be heard from the spectators. This Mie Fun is really bold. Fortunately, this is in public, so the burning heaven sect won't act so petty. However, this will definitely make Zhou Tianzong unhappy, right? On the seats of the 9 saints' heavenly gate, the Empyrean saint said worriedly, right now, in front of so many forces of the southern barbarian region, the burning heaven sect naturally wouldn't let Mie Fun scram. After all, the holy maiden had taken the initiative to come out, so the burning heaven sect couldn't act rashly. However, it was hard to say whether or not the burning heaven sect would settle the score with Mie Fun Xiao after this. This Mie Fun has some personality. It's just that the holy maiden actually agreed to his request. This is really beyond my expectations. Jiang Xian narrowed his eyes and muttered in surprise. What a familiar gaze. I seem to have seen it somewhere before. Mu Chinxue's beautiful eyes were fixed on Zhuowen's eyes. She frowned, as if she was trying to recall something, but she couldn't remember anything. Mu Chinxue's appearance made Zhuowen feel a little strange. He knew that if it was really Mu Chinxue, she should be able to recognize him from his eyes. After all, Mu Chinxue had been with him for quite some time, so she knew him well. But now Mu Chinxue didn't recognize him at all, which made Zhuowen feel incredulous. With a light sigh, Zhuowen sent a sound transmission. Chinxue, do you still have the mysterious nether orb on you? The mysterious nether orb was something that Zhuowen had given to Mu Chinxue when they were at the Divine Academy. Zhuowen knew that if he were to say this, as long as Mu Chinxue wasn't a fool, she would definitely be able to recognize him. Mysterious nether orb? Mu Chinxue was stunned. Her beautiful eyes revealed a look of doubt. Then, she took out a black bead from her bosom and asked, Are you talking about this bead? Zhou Tianzong didn't know anything about the mysterious nether orb. Even if Mu Chinxue took out the mysterious nether orb, Zhou Tianzong wouldn't have any suspicions. This bead contains the law of the mysterious nether, but it's very weak. It should be the law of the mysterious nether that was injected into it by a semi-sage. After returning to the sect, this bead was with me. But what I find strange is, how did this bead appear on me? I don't have any impression of it before. Could it be that you know the origin of this bead? Mu Chinxue seemed to be muttering in a low voice, but also seemed to be answering her own question. In the end, her seductive eyes fell on Zhuowen, as if she was asking the latter about the origin of this bead. Zhuowen's expression became extremely ugly. From Mu Chinxue's various signs, he was certain that Mu Chinxue had lost her memory. Or rather, Mu Chinxue's memories of him and Jiaxin Academy had already been lost. As for why Mu Chenxue lost her memory, Zhuowen didn't need to think to know that it was definitely caused by Zhou Tianzong. Thinking of this, Zhuowen's body emitted a faintly discernible killing intent. This killing intent was very faint, but Zhou Tianzong immediately caught it. Zhou Tianzong narrowed his eyes. He was a little surprised by Miefen's sudden abnormal behavior. Of course, the conversation between Miefen and Mu Chenxue was isolated by the soundproof restriction that Zhuowen had deliberately released. Thus, Zhou Tianzong didn't hear the specific content of their conversation. "What's wrong with you?" Looking at the abnormal behavior of the young man in front of her, Mu Chenxue's beautiful eyes flashed. Her calm heart was a little flustered. She didn't know why, but the young man in front of her made her very concerned. It was clearly the first time she had seen this young man, so why was she worried about him? "It's nothing. Actually, I'm not very clear about the origin of this bead, but it's extremely important to you. You have to take good care of it." Zhuowen slowly calmed the killing intent on his body. He smiled at Mu Chenxue and continued, "I'm going to take a trip to the burning sky and boiling sea. I wonder if the Holy Maiden is also planning to enter to find the burning flame nectar?" Mu Chenxue shook her head and said, "I have the phoenix bloodline, so I have a natural resistance to fire. The burning flame nectar is a fire attribute, so it won't have any obvious effect on me. In that case, I'll take my leave first." With that, Zhuowen turned around and stepped into the air without hesitation. In an instant, he swept into the burning sky and boiling sea, while Lo's returned to the seats of the Nine Saints' heavenly gate. "Zhuowen, Mu Chenxue seems to have lost her memories of you." The moment he entered the burning sky and boiling sea, Xiao Hei's voice rang out in his mind. "I know." In the boundless sea of magma, Zhuowen's eyes became extremely cold. He no longer suppressed the killing intent in his body, and it suddenly erupted. At this moment he needed to vent properly. He had not expected that Mu Chenxue would actually lose her memories of him. Zhuowen felt a little pain in his heart when he thought about how Mu Chenxue had forgotten about him. To be forgotten by someone you deeply loved was an indescribable sorrow. However, Zhuowen knew that now was not the time to be sad. Even if Mu Chenxue had lost her memories, he had to snatch them back. Xiao Hei transformed into Xiao Hei's dog form and stood on Zhuowen's shoulder as it chuckled. "Zhuowen, that Hu Bei's is the young palace master of the Snow Palace, and is also Mu Chenxue's fiancé. How do you plan to deal with Hu Bei's?" "Naturally, I won't let Hu Bei's go. Moreover, I want to use the most humiliating method to let him know in front of all the forces that he's not worthy of Chen Shui," Zhuowen said coldly. Xiao Hei's little eyes turned and it grinned. "How about this? This burning sky and boiling sea is probably specially prepared by Zhou Tianzong for Hu Bei's. The forces from the southern barbarian lands that came to participate are just getting a share of the soup. If this dragon master's guess is correct, Zhou Tianzong has already told Hu Bei's about the most precious 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar. It won't be too late for you to make a move after Hu Bei's obtains the 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar." Zhuowen nodded slightly and said, "Xiao Hei, you should have left some mark on Hu Bei's just now, right? Hey, it's just a bit of aura. If that brat Hu Bei's really does find the 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar, this dragon master will tell you. Of course, once the nectar is produced, it will be very powerful. Even if I don't say anything, you should be able to find it." Saying this, Xiao Hei's smile was very lewd. Even Zhuowen almost slapped it. The magma resistance around this burning sky and boiling sea is very strong. I wonder if the spirit-swallowing magma river can increase my speed here? Chapter 1555. Pressure. That's the 100-year burning flame nectar. Chase it. A rather noisy noise came from the front. Then, Zhuowen discovered that there were 8 figures in front of him. The power of laws revolved around them, forming a powerful layer of defense that resisted the blazing magma in the surroundings. Zhuowen focused and discovered that the 8 of them were chasing after a fiery red crystal. The crystal contained a red liquid. Needless to say, the red liquid was the burning flame nectar. It was the 100-year burning flame nectar, that the 8 of them were talking about. Zhuowen pulled the fiery red crystal into his palm with a wave of his right hand. He flipped his right hand, and the fiery red crystal stood quietly in his palm. The fiery red crystal's trajectory just happened to be where Zhuowen was, so he casually pulled it into his palm. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Who are you? Hurry up and hand over the 100-year burning flame nectar. The 8 of them arrived in an instant and landed in 8 different directions around Zhuowen. One of them, a muscular young man in a leather vest, stared at Zhuowen with hostility. And who are you? Zhuowen toyed with the fiery red crystal in his hand and asked in a mocking tone. The muscular young man in the leather vest had a decent cultivation. He was a half-saint. 4 of the other 7 were invincible emperor lords, while the other 3 were high-level emperors. Were disciples of the mountain-pulling sect. Know your place and hand over the burning flame nectar in your hand. If you do, I'll consider cutting off one of your arms and not taking your life. The man in the leather vest said indifferently. Zhuowen clenched his right hand, and his gaze landed on the fiery red crystal in his palm. Immediately, he clenched his fist, and the crystal was crushed. The fiery red liquid hidden within the crystal shot out, and was drunk by Zhuowen in a single gulp. Zhuowen immediately felt a burning sensation as he roared. It was as if his entire body was on fire, and it was burning hot. However, Zhuowen could keenly feel that within this burning sensation, there was a warm flow of energy circulating through Zhuowen's meridians, before finally merging into his dantian. With the injection of this warm current, Zhuowen could clearly feel that the saint energy in his dantian seemed to have increased by quite a bit. This burning flame nectar really has the effect of increasing saint energy? Zhuowen's eyes lit up with joy as he muttered in a low voice. You, well done, well done. You actually dared to swallow the burning flame nectar in front of us. You're dead. The 8 people led by the muscular young man in the leather vest all revealed furious expressions. This Zhuowen was really too presumptuous. The 8 of them were the ones who had discovered this 100-year treasure. Furthermore, they had chased after it for quite some time. Now, this young man in front of them had obtained it without putting in any effort. This was simply too hateful. Kill! The muscular young man in the leather vest trembled with anger. With a loud roar, he charged forward like a tyrannical lion. In an instant, he swept in front of Zhuowen. The law of fire swept out and condensed into a huge flaming broadsword. He viciously slashed it at Zhuowen. Zhuowen shrugged his shoulders and suddenly blasted out his right fist. The flaming broadsword that the muscular young man had painstakingly condensed collapsed immediately. He shattered my law broadsword with his bare hands. Seeing this scene, the muscular young man's heart trembled with fear. Just as he was about to step back to avoid the punch suddenly accelerated and quickly blasted in front of him. Puffed! Even if Zhuowen did not unleash the power of his saint body, this punch still caused the muscular young man to explode into a cloud of blood mist. Blood rained down. Zhuowen looked around, and his gaze fell on the 7 people. He said indifferently, "Do you still want to snatch it from me? No. We'll leave immediately. We have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Please don't take offense, my lord." The 7 people, who had originally intended to attack, suddenly froze. Immediately, like mice with their tails between their legs, they quickly fled. After this incident, Zhuowen also learned a lot about the burning flame nectar. For this kind of treasure that could increase one's saint energy, Zhuowen also joined the ranks of the scrambling. Whether it was the crystals that had no owner, or those that had been obtained by others, Zhuowen took them all. Because Zhuowen's strength was extremely powerful, even the disciples of some major forces suffered a great loss at the hands of Zhuowen. For a time, the name Miafeng could be said to be well known in the burning sky and boiling sea. Many disciples saw Zhuowen's figure from afar and avoided him in advance, as if they were avoiding the god of plague. The 1,000-year-old burning flame nectar has appeared. It's over there. Let's go. Suddenly a clamor was heard. Zhuowen, who was originally in the sea of magma, heard someone shout, so he also used his movement technique and rushed in the direction of those people. Whoosh! In the sea of magma, there were 10 flaming mountains that looked extremely strange. At this moment, There were many figures gathered around the flaming mountains. These people seemed to be afraid of something, and did not enter the center of the flaming mountains. It's Prince Raven from the Dark Crow sect, and the little virtuous Prince Jiang Liqing from the Jiangxian clan. If the two of them join forces, I'm afraid Xia Bingyu and Han Yu from the Nine Saint Heavenly Gate will be in trouble. Xia Bingyu from the Nine Saint Heavenly Gate is lucky to be able to find the 1,000-year-old burning flame nectar. This is really beyond everyone's expectations. Even Prince Raven and Jiang Liqing can't resist the temptation of this item. Zhuowen squinted his eyes when he heard the discussion. He quickly quickened his pace and leaped to the periphery of the mountain. In the mountain, two parties were in a stalemate. Prince Raven from the Dark Crow sect and Jiang Liqing from the Jiangxian clan were both floating in the air, suppressing the other party. The other party was led by Xia Bingyu, who was disguised as a man, and Han Yu, who was dressed in white. Behind them were the other disciples of the Nine Saint Heavenly Gate. However, the Nine Saint Heavenly Gate was being suppressed by the Dark Crow sect and the Jiangxian clan, and gradually fell into a decline. The defense formed by the crowd was showing signs of collapsing. Bingyu, give me the 1,000-year-old burning flame nectar, and I'll help you find other nectar. How about it? I won't let you suffer. Jiang Liqing stared at Xia Bingyu with blazing eyes. To be more precise, he was staring at the crystal in Xia Bingyu's hand. The surface of the crystal was as red as a flame. The liquid in the crystal was constantly surging, as if it wanted to escape from the shackles of the crystal. Jiang Liqing, you're shameless. Xia Bingyu's beautiful eyes were cold. Jiang Liqing has always been a hypocrite. How about this, Bingyu? The outer shell of the 1,000-year-old burning flame nectar is too hard. You won't be able to open it in a short time. Why don't you take it out and let everyone work together to open it? We'll split it equally. How about that? Prince Raven laughed sinisterly. Xia Bingyu's beautiful eyes were even colder. The Nine Saint Heavenly Gate had spent a lot of effort to obtain the 1,000-year-old burning flame nectar from the restrictive spells in the surrounding 10 flaming mountains. The Nine Saint Heavenly Gate had even lost a few disciples because of it. How could she be willing to share the 1,000-year-old burning flame nectar that the Nine Saint Heavenly Gate had painstakingly obtained? Bingyu, if you don't make a decision quickly, you won't be so kind when we break through your defense. Prince Raven sneered, his sinister eyes filled with evil intent. Slap! However, before Prince Raven could finish his words, a palm came out of nowhere and landed heavily on his face. A clear slap sounded. The Dark Crow Crown Prince spun a couple of times in the air, before spitting out a mouthful of cherry-red blood. Then, like a dead dog, he fell to the ground with his cheeks swollen. A foot stepped on Prince Raven's body, and an indifferent voice rang out. You're just a chicken. How dare you be so arrogant? Are you tired of living? Do you want to be stewed in chicken soup? Swoosh, swoosh. At this moment, everyone was frozen in place. They didn't expect such a turn of events. The originally arrogant Dark Crow Crown Prince was now beaten like a dead dog. The contrast was too great, and the scene was too beautiful. No one dared to look at it. Who are you? How dare you sneak attack the Crown Prince? You're courting death. The 7 or 8 disciples of the Dark Crow sect, who were standing behind the Crown Prince, shouted angrily when they regained their senses. In their opinion, this strange young man must have used some despicable method to sneak attack the Crown Prince. Noisy. Zhuowen did not pay any attention to the 7 or 8 disciples of the Dark Crow sect, who had shouted angrily. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the 7 or 8 disciples of the Dark Crow sect, and threw them out of the burning sky and boiling sea. How terrifying. Isn't this guy Miefan? I didn't expect this malefic star to intervene in this matter. Many martial artists in the surroundings noticed the young man who was stepping on Prince Raven's body. Many of them recognized the young man, especially those who had been robbed by Miefan. Their faces twitched. Their desire to fight for the burning flame nectar was extinguished, as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over them. This bastard, back off. Jiang Liqing narrowed his eyes and stepped back. At the same time, he ordered the 7 or 8 disciples of the Jiangxian family to back off. Since Miefan had thrown the Burning Flame restaurant out, Jiang Liqing had realized how terrifying Miefun was. He knew that he and the 7 or 8 disciples were no match for Miefun. Therefore, he ordered the disciples to retreat immediately. The 7 or 8 disciples of the Jiangxian family had also heard of Miefun. Naturally, they did not hesitate to carry out Jiang Liqing's order. Want to leave? Get back here. Zhuowen stepped on Prince Raven and stretched out his right hand. The power of the divine physique was fully displayed. His palm seemed to be plated with gold, and it emitted an unprecedented golden light. Whoosh! The palm passed through the void and set off endless waves of magma. Then, it swept in front of Jiang Liqing and pressed down on him. Jiang Liqing's expression changed drastically. He used the shadowless snow steps body technique and turned into an illusory shadow. He disappeared in front of the giant palm in an instant. Chapter 1556. Fire Qilin, get the hell over here. A thunderous voice resounded through the burning sea. After that, the huge palm that was chasing Jiang Liqing suddenly clenched. Immediately, the space around Jiang Liqing collapsed at the same time. No matter how proficient Jiang Liqing's shadowless snow steps was, he couldn't hide from the power of this palm. With the surrounding space shattered, Jiang Liqing couldn't dodge at all. He could only face the palm head-on. Fight! Jiang Liqing roared. The veins on his forehead bulged as a sword formation appeared from his spirit ring. The sword formation was composed of 2 swords. A formation diagram that exuded a mysterious aura was suspended at the top of the swords. The 2 swords were black and white. The black and white brilliance soared into the sky, transforming into the 8 trigrams of Tai Chi sword formation / Jiang Liqing shouted. The black and white swords cut through the void, transforming into 2 black and white arcs that looked extremely terrifying. Jiang Liqing actually took out the Tai Chi sword formation. The 2 swords in the Tai Chi sword formation are both profound saint tools. The sword formation formed by the combination of the 2 swords is much more powerful than an ordinary profound saint tool. When the Tai Chi sword formation revealed its power, many of the onlookers were surprised. They didn't expect Jiang Liqing to use such a powerful Tai Chi sword formation as soon as he made a move. The Tai Chi sword formation was mighty. It was Jiang Liqing's most powerful trump card. With the Tai Chi sword formation, even an ordinary peak profound saint wouldn't dare to provoke Jiang Liqing. Crack! At this moment a shattering sound rang out. Just as everyone was shocked by Jiang Liqing's Tai Chi sword formation, the huge hand swept over and heavily slammed into the Tai Chi sword formation. Then, the Tai Chi sword formation collapsed inch by inch, shattering into countless pieces. How is this possible? Looking at the shattered Tai Chi sword formation, Jiang Liqing was completely shocked. The Tai Chi sword formation was composed of 2 profound sage-grade swords. It was as hard as iron and stone. An ordinary profound saint might not necessarily be able to shatter it even if they used all their strength. But now, Miefun's huge hand had crushed the Tai Chi sword formation without even using saint force. This was too incredible. Pa! While Jiang Liqing stood there in a daze, the large hand arrived in an instant and ruthlessly slapped Jiang Liqing's face. Then, the latter spat out a mouthful of blood and was directly beaten to the ground. Then, the huge hand grabbed again and lifted Jiang Liqing to Zhuowen's feet. Zhuowen's other foot stepped directly on Jiang Liqing's body. At this moment, Zhuowen was stepping on Prince Raven with his right foot, and Jiang Liqing with his left. He was like a god looking down at everyone. This scene caused the mouths of many people in the surroundings to twitch. This Zhuowen was too ruthless. Prince Raven was the successor of the Dark Crow sect. He was one of the top geniuses in the southern barbarian lands. Jiang Liqing was even more outstanding. He was a genius who was even more powerful than Yin Ruhua of the Burning Heaven sect. He had the title of the #1 genius in the Burning Heaven city. Of course, if Jiang Liqing were to face the saintess of the Burning Heaven sect, the title of the #1 genius might not be true. However, this was enough to show how great Jiang Liqing's influence in the Burning Heaven city was. But now, at this moment, these 2 extremely renowned geniuses in the southern wilderness had actually been annihilated by a young man of unknown origin and trampled beneath his feet. This was truly too inconceivable. Miefun, you're too bold. How dare you step on us to get to the top? The Dark Crow sect will not let you go. You'll have to bear the consequences of offending the Jiangxian family. Prince Raven and Jiang Liqing were almost crazy. It was too humiliating to be stepped on like this. Did Miefun treat them as stepping stones? Was he not afraid of the forces behind them? How could he be so unscrupulous? Are the two of you very noisy? Do you really want to die? Zhuowen stomped his feet, and a tremendous force spread out from the bottom of his feet. Immediately, the two people beneath his feet groaned and spat out a mouthful of blood. Their bodies were covered in cracks, and they seemed like they would collapse at any moment. Prince Raven and Jiang Liqing were so shocked that they did not dare to speak anymore. They were really afraid that Miefun would go crazy and kill them. Swoosh! Swoosh! After Prince Raven and Jiang Liqing were stepped on by Zhuowen, Xia Bingyu and Han Yu brought the disciples of the Nine Saints Heavenly Sect over and landed in front of Zhuowen. Brother Miefun, thank you for saving us this time. Han Yu quickly thanked him with a warm and surprised expression. Although Xia Bingyu had said that Miefun was unfathomable, he did not expect Miefun to be so powerful. Prince Raven and Jiang Liqing, the two experts, were like displaying their sleight skills in front of an expert. They were trampled under his feet like vegetables, which was beyond his expectations. It's nothing. Zhuowen smiled. Xia Bingyu, on the other hand, stared at Zhuowen with a complicated look in her eyes. Even she did not expect that Miefun would be the one to save them. Xia Bingyu gritted her teeth and took out the red crystal in her hand. She handed it to Zhuowen and said, "Since you saved us, I'll give you this 1,000-year-old burning flame nectar as your reward." Junior sister, this. Han Yu was stunned and immediately stopped talking. He looked at Miefun in front of him. Speaking of which, they were saved safely because of Miefun. There was nothing wrong with giving the 1,000-year-old burning flame nectar to Miefun. However, Han Yu felt that it was a pity that they had risked their lives to obtain this 1,000-year-old burning flame nectar. He was unwilling to hand it over. Zhuowen was also surprised. He did not expect Xia Bingyu to be willing to hand over the 1,000-year-old burning flame nectar to him. Zhuowen smiled faintly as he received the crystal. With a squeeze of his right hand, the crystal directly crumbled into dust. The fiery red liquid contained within it surged out. Zhuowen took 1/3 of the liquid and returned the remaining 2/3 to Xia Bingyu. He smiled and said, "This 1/3 of the burning flame nectar is my reward for helping you." Xia Bingyu's jade-like hands held 2/3 of the fiery red liquid suspended in her palm. She never would have thought that Miefun would actually give away 2/3 of the burning flame nectar. Brother Miefun, thank you very much. I am very grateful. Han Yu's eyes were filled with joy as he repeatedly bowed to Zhuowen. He was extremely shocked by Zhuowen's actions. This was a 1,000-year-old burning flame nectar. It was very beneficial to a profound sage. Miefun giving away 2/3 was already very good to the Nine Saints Heavenly Gate. Thank you, Miefun. Xia Bingyu's lips trembled as she whispered. Boom! 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 Suddenly there was a terrifying vibration. Everyone was shocked to find that the surrounding 10 flame mountains were trembling violently. Then they were suspended in the air and began to rotate. The rotation speed was getting faster and faster. Finally, the 10 flame mountains converged toward the center and collided with each other. Rumble! A muffled thunder-like sound resounded. The moment the 10 flaming mountains collided, they trembled violently, and their surfaces began to crack into countless pieces. The flames on the surface of the flame mountains converged toward the center of the 10 mountains. Finally, when all the flames converged, the 10 flame mountains turned into fine powder and were completely engulfed by the surrounding sea of magma. A fire qilin that was dozens of feet long finally appeared in front of everyone. The fire qilin's body was covered with dense flames and looked extremely horrifying. This is the burning flame nectar. It's on the qilin's neck. Suddenly someone exclaimed. Then, everyone's eyes converged on the qilin's neck. There, a fiery red crystal the size of a palm was tightly attached to it. This fiery red crystal was in the shape of a qilin. It was very lifelike. This is a 3,000-year-old burning flame nectar. Only at this age can it transform. Someone else exclaimed. Hearing this, the breathing of countless people in the surroundings quickened. Their eyes were filled with passion. 3,000-year-old burning flame nectar was enough to make all profound sages go crazy. Grab it. In an instant, countless people rushed toward the huge fire qilin. Everyone had lost their minds. At this moment, the only thing in their eyes was the huge fire qilin in front of them. Everyone knew that as long as they could grab this 3,000-year-old burning flame nectar, no matter who it was, they would make transformative progress. Roar! The fire qilin's fiery eyes were full of tyranny. Especially when it saw the countless warriors rushing toward it, it roared angrily. The fire qilin suddenly jumped up. The surrounding magma violently surged and shot out like countless arrows. Aha! Screams rang out one after another. Many warriors who were not strong enough retreated with injuries under the attack of the countless arrows. Some unlucky fellows were hit by the arrows and directly burned to ashes. However, there were also some powerful warriors who blasted away the countless arrows and instantly rushed in front of the fire qilin, frantically attacking it. Of course, there were also some people who took advantage of the situation and secretly waited for an opportunity. Their purpose was naturally to obtain the burning flame nectar on the fire qilin's neck. However, this fire qilin was not a persimmon that could be easily pinched. Even though it was besieged by many warriors, it was not afraid at all. It counterattacked again and again, causing many of the besieging warriors to retreat. Xiaobingyu came to Zhuowen's side and couldn't help but ask, "This fire qilin is so terrifying. Miefan, should we join in and grab this 3,000-year-old burning flame nectar?" Zhuowen had yet to speak when a violent tiger's roar suddenly flashed over from afar. In the endless magma, a huge white tiger phantom was striding over at an extremely fast speed. The white tiger's shadow instantly arrived above the fire qilin, and a pair of tiger claws fiercely smashed down. It was as if it could crush anything in the world, and it was as if it could crush anything. Chapter 1557. Tiger Split Roar. The fire qilin roared at the sky. A pair of sky-covering sharp claws suddenly shot upwards. Rumble! The fire qilin's claw attack caused the surrounding sea of magma to churn and wreak havoc. It soared into the sky, appearing like a huge fire dragon that was wreaking havoc. The might of the fire qilin's claw attack caused the surrounding cultivators, who had retreated, to feel a chill in their hearts. The huge white tiger fell from the sky like a hot knife through butter. Its mountain-like body stood in the middle of the sea of magma. A steel chain-like tough and terrifying tiger tail swung horizontally. Crack! The fire qilin's claws that were wreaking havoc were completely destroyed by the terrifying might of the tiger tail. The fire qilin's huge body was also pushed back by the terrifying tail attack, causing waves of magma to rise. Roar! The fire qilin's fiery eyes were filled with fear. It stared intently at the white tiger illusory figure that had suddenly appeared in front of it. The white tiger illusory figure posed a great threat to it, causing the fire qilin to faintly feel like retreating. Swoosh! After the fire qilin roared, it directly turned around and fled in front of everyone's eyes. This scene caused everyone's jaws to drop. Originally, everyone thought that the fire qilin and the white tiger illusory figure would have an earth-shaking battle. Unexpectedly, the fire qilin had only exchanged a single blow with the white tiger illusory figure before it became terrified and fled. Where do you think you're going? A thunderous roar exploded in the sky. A robust figure stood in front of the fire qilin in the direction that it had fled. It's the young master of the ferocious tiger sect, Hu Lai. Waves of exclamations erupted when everyone's eyes landed on this muscular young man. Quite a number of people had recognized Hu Lai's identity. Roar! The fire qilin's fiery eyes were filled with disdain when it saw a human cultivator standing in front of it. It roared and charged forward. In the fire qilin's opinion, the human cultivator in front of it was simply courting death. It would be able to smash the human cultivator to death if it charged forward. Endless World, Dragon Subduing Tiger. Tiger Break stood in the air and pressed down with his right hand. Terrifying Saint Force continued to gather behind him, and finally formed a giant hand that was several thousand feet long. This giant hand was like a 5-fingered mountain. It came crashing down from the sky, as if it could subdue a true dragon and suppress a ferocious tiger. After that, everyone noticed to their astonishment that the terrifying fire Qilin, that possessed an imposing aura, that was like a rainbow, had directly knelt on the ground under the suppression of this large hand. It was firmly suppressed and was utterly unable to stand up. As for that enormous hand, it turned into a 5-fingered mountain and crushed the fire Qilin beneath it. Seeing Hu Lai suppress the fire Qilin with a single hand, many of the surrounding martial artists felt their hearts tremble. This Hu Lai was truly worthy of being the successor of the Western region's overlord, the ferocious tiger sect. Such a terrifying fire Qilin was actually easily suppressed by him with a single hand. Whoosh! Hu Lai took a step forward. The white tiger phantom in front of him roared and landed beneath his feet, carrying him to the foot of the 5-fingered mountain. Hu Lai walked down from the white tiger's back and sized up the fire Qilin before him. He grinned and said, "My luck really isn't bad. I actually managed to encounter a 3,000-year-old burning flame nectar." As he spoke, Hu Lai took a step forward and reached out with his right hand. He wanted to take the fiery red crystal from the fire Qilin's neck. Whoosh! However, just as Hu Lai's right hand was about to land on the fire Qilin's neck, the sound of something breaking through the air came from behind him. It was as if it could pierce through metal and shatter stone, shattering the world. Hu Lai's eyes turned cold. He suddenly turned around and threw out a punch. A tiger's roar filled the sky. As this punch shot out, it seemed to condense into the phantom of a ferocious tiger that met the attack behind him. Rumble! A terrifying sound like an explosion rang out. Hu Lai threw out a punch, and the attack behind him was immediately sent flying. Only then did he realize that the thing that had broken through the air was actually a simple and unadorned spear. However, the saint might that was faintly emitted from the surface of the spear showed that it was extraordinary. This spear was a profound saint artifact. Hu Lai recognized it at a glance. "Who is it?" Hu Lai's face was very cold. His muffled, thunderous voice exploded in the air, echoing endlessly. It shook the eardrums of many of the surrounding cultivators. Whoosh! A figure suddenly rushed out, and like a wisp of smoke, it steadily landed on the handle of the long spear that was stabbed into the ground not far away. "For the sake of your own life, I think it's better for you to hand over the 3,000-year-old burning flame nectar." The figure stood at the end of the spear handle and looked down at Hu Lai. However, the words that came out of his mouth caused Hu Lai's eyes to narrow slightly, revealing a strange expression. It wasn't just Hu Lai. Many of the surrounding cultivators also revealed strange expressions. "It's that Miefun. Isn't this Miefun too arrogant? He actually dares to say such arrogant words to the young master of the ferocious tiger sect. Does he think that Hu Lai is a small fry? Although this Miefun is strong, I don't think that this guy is stronger than Hu Lai. If he says such arrogant words now, I'm afraid that he won't be able to get off the stage later." An uproar accompanied by numerous discussions resounded in the surroundings. Everyone believed that Fun Yan had gone overboard with his arrogance. Although Fun Yan's previous performance showed that the former's strength was far beyond that of an ordinary genius of the younger generation, Hu Lai was not an ordinary genius. He was the young master of the ferocious tiger sect, and a famous monstrous genius. Such a genius whose cultivation had reached the peak of the profound saint realm, most likely had the battle prowess of a sky saint. However, this Miefun did not seem to put Hu Lai in his eyes at all. He was simply too arrogant, so arrogant that it was boundless. "You're telling me that for the sake of my life, you want me to hand over the 3,000-year-old burning flame nectar? Do you know who I am? Are you sure you're not joking?" Hu Lai's words were filled with surprise. Ever since he was born, no one had ever said such arrogant words in front of him. Moreover, the one who said such words this time was a person of the younger generation, who appeared to be even younger than him. "I don't give you much time. For the sake of your life, hurry up and hand over the 3,000-year-old burning flame nectar." Zhuowen waved his hand impatiently. Zhuowen's impatient appearance caused many of the surrounding cultivators to reveal looks of ridicule. They knew that Miefan was done for. Hulai would definitely not let him off. Haha, your courage is commendable for daring to say such words in front of me, Hulai. However, the price you will have to pay will be extremely heavy. Hulai laughed out loud. Immediately, a dense and cold killing intent shot out from his eyes. He took a step forward, and the white tiger illusory figure under his feet leaped into the air. It suddenly pounced and descended from the sky, rushing towards Zhuowen below. What is Miefan doing? Is he courting death? Not far away. Everyone from the Nine Saints' heavenly gate fell silent. After Xia Bingyu regained her senses, she wanted to pounce over in an attempt to pull Zhuowen back. Junior sister, that's the young master of the ferocious tiger sect. Don't go. Hanyu reacted quickly and quickly pulled Xia Bingyu back, preventing her from going over to Zhuowen's side. There's no need for me to explain the heavy price. I'm sure you know that it's your life. The white tiger phantom was extremely fast. In an instant it descended above Zhuowen. In the next instant, the white tiger phantom's huge tiger claws were about to land in front of Zhuowen and tear him to pieces. Miefan is done for. Looking at the man and tiger that were so close to each other, many of the onlookers exclaimed. They knew that Miefan was likely to be completely torn apart by the white tiger's sharp claws. However, Zhuowen was not afraid. He clenched his right hand into a fist in the face of the white tiger phantom that was descending from the sky. The power of his holy body burst out. Golden veins appeared all over his body. When he punched, there was a faint power that could shatter the sky and the earth. Boom! Under everyone's shocked gaze, the huge white tiger's claws shattered. The white tiger let out a sorrowful cry and collapsed. What? The white tiger bloodline armor soul was shattered? The moment the white tiger collapsed, Hulai jumped up and retreated. His eyes were filled with disbelief. The surroundings fell into a strange silence, as everyone stared blankly at the scene before them. You don't have time to be shocked now. Zhuowen's eyes were indifferent. He jumped up with his right foot, and the 9-star 8 trigram spear was lifted up by his foot. He then punched the spear's handle. Whoosh! 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 A terrifying sound rang out from the tip of the 9-star 8 trigram spear. Then, the 9-star 8 trigram spear shot toward Hulai like a meteor. Wherever the spear passed, the void collapsed inch by inch, revealing endless black cracks. Damn it! Boundless heaven and earth, subdue dragon and tiger. Hulai roared angrily. His huge hand slammed down again. It was like a huge 5-fingered mountain that slammed into the 9-star 8 trigram spear. Crack! The spear flew past. Even the huge hand could not block it. The huge hand collapsed. The spear streaked across like a meteor, heading toward Hulai's chest. Hulai's pupil shrank. At the critical moment, he suddenly moved down and dodged the spear. Poochie! Blood spurted out. The spear pierced through Hulai's collarbone. Blood splattered everywhere. And Hulai was sent flying by the powerful recoil. Silence. The surroundings fell into an unbearable silence. The young master of the ferocious tiger sect, a monstrous genius at the peak of the profound sage realm, had been defeated by Miefan in one move. Wasn't this too terrifying? Whoosh! 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 In an instant, everyone's gazes fell on Miefan, who was floating in the air. Everyone's gazes changed. To be able to defeat an expert like Hulai in one move, didn't that mean that the young man in front of them had the battle prowess of at least the Sky Shade Sage realm? Junior sister, where did Miefan come from? Isn't he too powerful and terrifying? All the disciples of the 9 Saints' heavenly gate were stunned. The white-robed Han Yu's throat trembled as he asked Xia Bingyu beside him in disbelief. Chapter 1558. Pure Profound Saint Realm Boom. Zhuowen's right foot suddenly stomped, and the surrounding magma directly surged. The reverse thrust produced by the force of 30,000 kilograms acted on Zhuowen's legs, causing Zhuowen to explosively shoot out like an arrow leaving the bow. Zhuowen instantly flashed to arrive before Tiger Break, and then he stomped down with his foot. This stomp carried supreme divine might that collapsed the heavens and split the earth, moved mountains and overturned seas. It was as if a single stomp of his was capable of flattening any mountain or water, drying up and cracking the ground. Bastard! Tiger Breaker roared at the sky, and the supreme sage might of a peak-profound saint erupted from his body. Tiger Breaker punched out once again. This time, the white tiger roared at the heavens. The white tiger's bloodline power erupted with a terrifying energy that soared into the sky. The terrifying fist aura wrapped around the roaring white tiger phantom, as it once again pressed down on Zhuowen. It's useless. This move of yours is not very effective against me, Zhuowen said indifferently as he stomped down. The white tiger phantom let out a mournful cry, and its huge tiger body directly collapsed. However, Zhuowen's attack did not change, and he continued to stomp down on Tiger Breaker. Bastard, I'll make you die miserably. Tiger Breaker roared at the sky and took out a scroll from his spirit ring. The scroll's surface was overflowing with immortal chi. There were divine dragons lying down, immortal phoenixes falling from the sky, immortal mountains appearing, and giant trees towering into the sky. Is that a sage treasure? The moment Tiger Breaker took out the scroll, many sharp-eyed cultivators in the surroundings recognized the origin of this scroll. A scroll that can emit such a powerful aura should at least be a heavenly saint-level sage treasure. I didn't expect Tiger Breaker to be forced to use such a treasure. Everyone was in an uproar. The sage treasure that Tiger Breaker took out was obviously not an ordinary sage treasure. A heavenly saint-level sage treasure was undoubtedly extremely precious. It could be said to be Tiger Breaker's strongest trump card. Once this sage treasure was used, it was as if a heavenly saint-level sage had personally appeared. How could it not be powerful? Heavenly holy treasure? Zhuowen narrowed his eyes, but a mocking smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He said, "It's just a saint treasure of the heavens of Yin, yet you dare to take it out and embarrass yourself. I advise you to surrender quickly and submit to me. Perhaps I can consider letting you go." Zhuowen's words caused many of the surrounding warriors to stare intently. Wasn't Miefan being too arrogant? He dared to speak so arrogantly in front of the holy treasure of the heavens of Yin. The holy treasure of the heavens of Yin was not something that Tiger Split himself could compare to. Let's see how long you can be so arrogant. Tiger Break snorted coldly. With a stroke of his right hand, he unfurled the scroll in his hand. A beam of sacred light shot into the sky, spreading through the entire region. A strong shadow slowly stepped out of the scroll. This shadow was the heavenly saint who had nurtured the scroll. The shadow stepped on a divine dragon, a celestial phoenix, a celestial mountain, a giant tree, and finally arrived in front of Zhuowen. His facial features were blurry, but his eagle-like eyes were bursting with unprecedented essence. "Die," the shadow said lightly. His words were like thunder, an earthquake, a tsunami, and the sky collapsing. The shocking voice resounded in everyone's ears, causing them to involuntarily cover their ears. As expected of the heavenly Yin holy treasure, just a shout from the shadow of the heavenly Yin saint has such power. "I'm afraid Miefan is in danger." Everyone covered their ears. They were secretly shocked by the power of the heavenly Yin holy treasure. They could not help but mutter to themselves, "Heavenly Yin holy treasure, you must break for me. Ice and fire." Zhuowen continued to step down. At this moment, the holy symbol of ice and fire exploded with terrifying power in his eyes of ice and fire. A huge palace of ice and fire condensed behind Zhuowen and slammed down. With the help of the holy body and the holy symbol of ice and fire, the current Zhuowen was as powerful as a god, and was extremely terrifying. Rumble! When the ice-fire palace landed on the Yin Sky Saint's silhouette, it exploded with a tremendous force. Then the Yin Sky Saint's silhouette, which had been soaring into the sky, froze in midair. What's going on with this palace? How could it block the power of the heavenly Yin holy treasure? Tiger Break was shocked. However, something even more shocking followed. Miefan landed on the top of the palace of ice and fire like a meteor. He stepped down with his right foot and golden light exploded. It was as if his foot contained the power of a sun. Rumble! The palace of ice and fire shook violently. Then, the shadow of the heavenly Yin saint let out a loud shout, and collapsed into countless pieces. The scroll in Tiger Breaker's hand was covered in dense cracks. Moreover, the sound of shattering continued to ring out. In the end, the scroll was reduced to dust. Tiger Break was both shocked and furious. He threw away the shattered scroll and immediately retreated. He had no intention to fight. What kind of monster was Miefun in front of him? He had used the heavenly holy treasure, but it still wasn't a match for him. Instead, the heavenly holy treasure had shattered. It was unbelievable. Where do you think you're going? An ethereal voice rang out from the void. Hulai looked around and discovered that there was no trace of Miefun in the surrounding void. Rumble! The void behind Tiger Break cracked open. Miefun took a step forward and ruthlessly kicked Tiger Break in the back. Plop! Tiger Break fell to the ground and fell flat on his face. Then, Zhuowen stepped on his back, making it impossible for Tiger Break to stand up. What are you trying to do? I'm the young master of the fierce tiger sect. How dare you treat me like this? Tiger Break almost went crazy. His eyes were red as he roared. Be quiet. Do you know that you're very noisy now? Zhuowen's eyes were cold. His right foot stepped on Tiger Break's back, causing the latter to spit out a mouthful of blood. His face was extremely pale. Tiger Break was so frightened that he no longer dared to speak carelessly. Wouldn't it have been better if you had handed over the burning flame nectar earlier? Then, you wouldn't have ended up in such a miserable state, Zhuowen said indifferently. Tiger Break was so angry that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. How could he have known that Miefun was so powerful that even his sacred treasure of Sky couldn't defeat him? It was unbelievable. Who are you? You're so young, yet you can suppress me. There shouldn't be someone like you in the southern barbarian region. Or rather, there shouldn't be someone as monstrous as you in the four regions. Could it be that you're from the middle region? Tiger Break looked pensive as he asked Zhuowen. A loser like you doesn't have the right to ask questions in front of me. Know your place. Zhuowen stepped on Tiger Break's back, causing him to spit out another mouthful of blood. As for Tiger Break's question, Zhuowen didn't answer it directly. It was Zhuowen's attitude that made Tiger Break believe that the mysterious Miefun before him was very likely a disciple of some major force in the middle region. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him, the #1 genius of the western region, to defeat him so easily. Roar! A fierce tiger roar resounded. Countless tiger silhouettes soared into the sky from under Zhuowen's feet, filling the entire sky. A surging energy erupted from under Zhuowen's feet, like a volcano. Thud! 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 Under this huge force, Zhuowen could not help but retreat again, and again as he stared at Hulai, who was surrounded by countless tiger shadows in shock. Roar! Tiger Break roared. Under everyone's shocked gazes, he quickly fled into the distance. He was so fast that not even his shadow could be seen. So fast. Looks like Tiger Break has used some sort of secret technique. If it weren't for the special environment of the burning sky and boiling sea, I could still use the laws of the void to chase after him. Unfortunately, the burning sky and boiling sea's environment greatly restricted the laws of the void. Zhuowen could only use the void leap for short distances. He was powerless for long distances, so after Tiger Break disappeared, Zhuowen didn't chase after him. After all, the 3,000-year-old burning flame nectar was still here. If Zhuowen left, it would probably be taken away immediately. Whoosh! Zhuowen landed on the fire qilin at the foot of the mountain. His right hand reached into the fire qilin's neck and pulled out the fiery red crystal. Roar! The fire qilin let out a sorrowful cry. After the fiery red crystal left its body, it turned into countless sparks and scattered. Zhuowen carefully stared at the crystal in his palm, his eyes blazing. The crystal was in the shape of a qilin. It was lifelike and beautiful. Many cultivators in the surroundings stared enviously at the crystal in Zhuowen's hand. However, no one dared to approach Zhuowen. After all, even Tiger Break wasn't his opponent. They would only be courting death if they went up against him. I wonder if this 3,000-year-old burning flame nectar will be able to raise my cultivation to the next level. As he spoke, Zhuowen clenched his right hand. The qilin crystal shattered. The fiery red liquid inside gushed out, condensing into a palm-sized fire qilin. Roar! The small and exquisite fire qilin roared. Its fiery eyes were filled with fear. It immediately planned to flee. "Little guy, you're already in my palm. You still want to escape?" Zhuowen grinned. With a wave of his right hand, the four-killer sacred sword array surged out. It arranged itself around him, forming a sword-shaped prison. Woo-woo! The fire qilin crashed into the surface of the prison. It immediately howled and retreated. It was unable to break through the shackles of the four-killer sacred sword array. Zhuowen grabbed with his hand, and the small and exquisite fire qilin was caught in his palm. After that, he crushed it, causing countless amounts of fiery red liquid to disperse like raindrops. And all of it was absorbed by the apertures on Zhuowen's body. What rich fire attribute energy! Zhuowen only felt his entire body warm up, and his cheeks flushed red. The 3,000-year-old burning flame nectar flowed through his meridians in a clockwise direction, and gathered in Zhuowen's dantian, causing the saint energy in Zhuowen's dantian to increase at an unbelievable rate. Furthermore, the rate at which his saint energy was increasing was getting faster and faster. In the end, Zhuowen's body rumbled like the nine heavens' profound thunder. His aura had undergone a transformation in an instant, and it was now hundreds of times stronger than before. I broke through to the fourth pure profound saint realm. Zhuowen was in high spirits. His eyes shone with the divine light. The aura on his body was much more terrifying than that of an ordinary profound saint. This Miefun was only at the glimpse profound saint realm at the beginning. I actually lost to a glimpse profound saint realm guy. Damn it, is this guy abnormal? Far away from the place where Zhuowen had broken through, Hu Lai's rather miserable figure finally appeared. His gaze fell on Zhuowen's back. His eyes were filled with shock. Chapter 1559. 5,000-year burning flame jade cream. After advancing to the pure profound saint realm, Zhuowen's entire body burst with golden light. His saint aura was vast and mighty, like an ancient saint emperor, heroic and majestic. Miefun was only at the glimpse profound saint realm before he advanced? How did he defeat Hu Lai? As soon as Zhuowen broke through, the aura of the glimpse profound saint realm, hidden in his body, immediately leaked out. Many cultivators in the surroundings felt Zhuowen's aura, and they were all moved. Hu Lai was a terrifying peak profound saint realm expert, at the fifth profound shattering profound saint realm. His battle prowess surpassed his own, but even so, he was still defeated by Miefun, who was only at the glimpse profound saint realm. A mere glimpse profound saint realm expert was actually able to defeat a shattering profound saint realm expert like Hu Lai, who was 2 levels higher than him. What kind of monster was this? The enormous saint aura slowly withdrew, and the golden light on Zhuowen's body gradually dissipated. Zhuowen turned his head slightly and said indifferently, "Still not going to scram? If you don't scram, I don't mind stepping on you again." As soon as these words came out, Hu Lai's expression turned ugly. In the end, he coldly snorted and immediately left this place. He also knew that Miefun might be able to detect him at such a distance, but he also estimated that he could advance or retreat at this distance. Even if Miefun wanted to chase after him, he could rely on a secret technique to escape again. But the price would be great. Zhuowen also knew that Hu Lai had a strange escape secret technique, so even if he chased after him, he might not be able to catch up. After Hu Lai left, Zhuowen took a step forward and arrived at Jiang Liqing and Prince Raven, who were still kneeling on the ground. Zhuowen indifferently stepped on the 2 of them and said, "Now, the 2 of you have 2 choices. One is to become my mount and obey my orders. The second choice is to die." "What? You want me to be stepped on by you and become your mount? Miefun, don't go too far." Little virtuous King Jiang Liqing was furious, and the veins on his forehead bulged. He couldn't help but shout angrily. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a hand appeared beside his face and slapped him fiercely, causing Jiang Liqing to be stunned. "Since you're so reserved, then it's a pity. You can go to hell first." Zhuowen's eyes were indifferent. He clenched his right hand, and the long spear appeared in his hand. Without hesitation, he thrust it towards Jiang Liqing's forehead, as if he wanted to pierce through it completely. "No, I'll compromise, don't kill me." Under the threat of the sharp tip of the spear, The restraint in Jiang Liqing's heart immediately disappeared, and he shamelessly shouted out loud. Wouldn't it have been better if you did this earlier? Zhuowen withdrew his spear and stepped on Jiang Liqing's back. As for Prince Raven, his face was ashen, and he did not say a word. He was much more sensible than Jiang Liqing. He knew very well that he was now a fish on the chopping block, while Miefun was in front of him. His life was in Miefun's hands. If he dared to disobey Miefun's orders, he would die miserably. Prince Raven was very sure of this. It was not the first time he had dealt with Miefun. In a sense, Miefun was the same kind of person as him. He was unscrupulous and decisive in some matters. Such a person was the most terrifying. Zhuo Wen's voice wasn't soft, and many people in the surroundings heard it clearly. Soon after, everyone revealed a strange expression, especially when they looked at the dark crow crown prince and Jiang Liqing, who were being stepped on. Their gazes were extremely strange. Prince Raven and Jiang Liqing were the top geniuses of the southern barbarian lands. Now, under the threat of life and death, they readily compromised. This made many people's jaws drop. Rumble. Suddenly, a muffled thunder-like sound rang out in the entire burning sky and boiling sea. Then, the surrounding sea of magma began to roll violently, as if something was coming out from the depths of the burning sky and boiling sea. Kid, the 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar is about to appear. Bathing Zhe is currently in the depths of the burning sky and boiling sea, trying to get the 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar out. Blackie suddenly said. Hearing this, Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice, Do you want me to go over now? However, Blackie shook his head and said, No need. The 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar is not simple. It will not be easy for the bathing swamp to completely subdue the 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar. You can act according to the situation later. Crash. As soon as Xiaohei's voice fell, the entire burning sky and boiling sea collapsed. The endless magma in the surroundings dissipated, and all of it gathered in the deepest part of the burning sky and boiling sea. In an instant, those cultivators who had entered the burning sky and boiling sea appeared in the sky above the burning sky plaza. They were confused as well. They were also a little surprised that such an abnormality would suddenly occur in the burning sky and boiling sea. Look over there. The magma is all gathering in that direction. A cry of surprise rang out. Immediately, a few sharp-eyed cultivators immediately pointed towards the depths of the burning sky and boiling sea. There was a black spiral whirlpool. The magma in the entire burning sky and boiling sea was all gathering in the black whirlpool. The black whirlpool was also extraordinary. Like a giant whale sucking in water, it was endless. The magma within hundreds of thousands of miles of the burning sky and boiling sea was not rejected, and was all absorbed by it. Squeak! An earth-shattering cry of a phoenix resounded. Then, the black vortex began to distort and deform, spewing out endless flames. Amidst the endless flames, a huge phoenix stretched out its neck and let out a long cry as it was reborn from the flames. This phoenix was tens of thousands of feet in size. When it spread its wings, it seemed to envelop the entire burning sky city and burn it. It looked extremely terrifying. In between the eyebrows of this fire phoenix, there was a phoenix-shaped crystal that flickered with a fiery red light. The light transformed into phoenix shadows, and endless phoenix cries resounded. That should be the 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar, right? It's actually in the form of a phoenix. It looks really intimidating. Seeing the huge phoenix shadow, many people in the sky were moved. However, they did not immediately rush up. They could feel that this huge phoenix was not to be trifled with. The fire qilin that was formed by the 3,000-year-old burning flame nectar was already troublesome enough, not to mention the fire phoenix that was formed by the 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar. Without a doubt, this fire phoenix was definitely much more terrifying than the fire qilin. Squeak! The fire phoenix spread its wings and suddenly circled in the air. The terrifying hurricane that swept up by its wings blew the surrounding cultivators to the point that they could not stand steadily. There were even some unlucky fellows who were directly blown away and smashed onto the ground. Dodge! Zhuowen stepped on Prince Raven and Jiang Liqing's bodies and coldly ordered. Jiang Liqing and Prince Raven's faces were filled with humiliation, but they did not disobey Zhuowen's words. They used their hands and feet to sweep through the void. Their posture was like that of apes and monkeys, which looked particularly funny, but their speed was not slow. The scene of Zhuowen stepping on Jiang Liqing and Prince Raven's bodies quickly attracted the attention of countless people around. Originally, their attention was focused on the Fire Phoenix. Now that the Fire Phoenix had appeared, many people's attention fell on this funny scene. Isn't that Miafen? Isn't this Miafen stepping on Prince Raven and Jiang Liqing? Could it be that Miafen is using the Dark Crow Crown Prince and Jiang Liqing as mounts? Stepping on their bodies is too crazy. I wonder what Yin Wu Shui and Jiang Xianwang will think when they see this. Around the burning sky square, countless warriors stared blankly at this scene. Prince Raven and Jiang Liqing were both influential figures in the southern barbarian lands. They were also famous monstrous geniuses in the southern barbarian lands. Now these two were being stepped on by Miafen and treated as mounts. This contrast was too big. Everyone subconsciously thought that they had seen wrongly. Of course, when they rubbed their eyes, they found that what they saw was not an illusion but reality. Crack. On the Jiang Xian family's seat, Jiang Xianwang suddenly crushed the armrest. His eyes were fixed on Jiang Liqing, who was being stepped on, and his eyes began to fill with anger. You are courting death. How dare you trample on the successor of my Dark Crow sect? A sinister voice suddenly came from a floating crack. The Dark Crow sect's hierarch, Yin Wu Shui, who was wearing a black robe, slammed the table and stood up. Countless palm-sized crows surrounded his body and carried him towards Zhuowen. Yin Wu Shui is furious. Prince Raven is being trampled on like this. It would be strange if Yin Wu Shui is not angry. Many people grinned and gloated. The Dark Crow sect was famous in the southern barbarian lands, but most of the news was negative. It could be said that the Dark Crow sect had committed all kinds of atrocities in the southern barbarian lands. Many warriors did not have a good impression of the Dark Crow sect. This was also the reason why many warriors felt happy when Miafen stepped on Prince Raven. Let go of Liqing. Jiang Xianwang could not bear it anymore. He took a step forward and stepped on the void with the experts of the Jiang Xian family. They also rushed towards Zhuowen. In a flash, the experts of the Jiang Xian family and the Dark Crow sect surrounded Zhuowen. Their eyes were like tigers staring at their prey with hostility. Zhuowen coldly looked at the people of the Jiang Xian family and the Dark Crow sect. He then looked at Zhou Tianzong, who was standing in front of the burning sky palace, and said with a smile, "Sect Master Zhou, these two old men are shameless. They actually interfered in the sacred ceremony of burning the sky and boiling the sea. The burning sky and boiling the sea is a competition between the younger generation. These two old men shamelessly wanted to deal with me. I think Sect Master Zhou should also intervene." After these words came out, many people's eyes fell on Zhou Tianzong. They all knew that Zhou Tianzong was the one in charge of this ceremony. He had the final right to explain. Zhou Tianzong slightly lowered his head, as if he did not pay attention to Zhuowen. "Humph. This is only our private matter. What does it have to do with burning the sky and boiling the sea? You little bastard, your ability to distort the truth is not bad." Yin Wu Shui coldly said. Jiang Xianwang did not say anything. However, looking at his expression, he seemed to agree with Yin Wu Shui's words. "Sect Master Zhou, are you deaf?" Zhuowen squinted his eyes and raised his voice. Chapter 1560. Escalating conflict. Zhou Tianzong's words caused many people's eyes to flicker. From Zhou Tianzong's words, it was clear that he didn't intend to reconcile. Whoosh! Lowe's stepped in the air and blocked in front of Zhuowen. He said coldly, "If you want to capture my young master, you'll have to get past me first." After saying that, Lowe's clenched his right hand, and the 18th mountain fell from the sky, blocking Yin Wu Shui and King Jiang Xian. The 18th mountain was like a bridge that connected the heavens and the earth. Yin Wu Shui and King Jiang Xian both took a few steps back. Looking at the 18th mountain, their eyes revealed a trace of uncertainty. They could feel the power of the 18th mountain. The bald man by Miefun's side isn't simple. The ferocious tiger sex patriarch, Hu Danshan, and the Snow Palace's palace master, Yuan Jibai, looked at each other. They both felt the powerful qi and blood on Lo's body. But what surprised them was that Lo's didn't have any sign of the power of law. Could it be that he was hiding it? Of course, if Lo's was just a cultivator who had broken through, they wouldn't be so surprised. You two old farts, are you not going to care about the life and death of your descendants? Zhuowen stomped on the crown prince and Jiang Liqing, causing them to groan and spit out a mouthful of blood. King Jiangxian and Yin Wushui's faces became extremely ugly. Now that Prince Raven and Jiang Liqing were in the hands of Miefun, they didn't dare to do anything to him. It wasn't just because of Lo's, but also because they were afraid that Miefun would act recklessly and kill Prince Raven and Jiang Liqing. If you let Liqing go, my Jiangxian family will not pursue any of your previous actions. I, King Jiangxian, am willing to swear on my life. How about it? King Jiangxian said coldly. Yin Wushui's eyes flickered. He coldly snorted and said, "Little bastard, I'll let you off easy. I'm the same as King Xianjiang. If you let Prince Raven go, I'm willing to swear on my life that I won't pursue this matter." Zhuowen sneered and said, "What qualifications do you have to look at me with such high and mighty eyes? Do you really think that swearing an oath with your life force is the biggest charity you can give me? In my opinion, your lives are not even comparable to a dog's fart, and you still have the nerve to show off in front of me?" Yin Wushui and Jiang Xianwang were astonished. They were furious. Miefun was too presumptuous. In any case, they were one of the most powerful lords in the southern barbarian lands. Miefun, on the other hand, directly said that their life oaths were worthless. How hateful! Even the surrounding warriors shook their heads. Even though Miefun's strength was not bad, and he was able to trample the Dark Crow Crown Prince and Jiang Liqing, these two geniuses, under his feet, wasn't he too arrogant? You're just a pure profound Saint Realm Junior. How dare you be so arrogant? People like you are very rare nowadays. You're just relying on your guards. What qualifications do you have to be arrogant in front of me? Yin Wushui said coldly. Yin Wushui was extremely disdainful. Zhuowen's aura was only at the pure profound Saint Realm. Such a cultivation level was just like an ant in front of a Yin Sky Saint Realm expert. He could crush him with a flip of his hand. Zhuowen was too lazy to pay attention to Yin Wushui's mockery. At this moment, his gaze fell on the huge fire phoenix in the distance. The fire phoenix's power was very terrifying. Many cultivators in the sky had already been seriously injured by the fire phoenix's attack. Some had died, some had fled, and some had hidden far away. However, there was a figure that went in the opposite direction. Following the flow of the crowd, he flew towards the intimidating fire phoenix. Waves of extremely cold ice and snow fell from the sky, sprinkling over the entire horizon. It's the young palace master of the Snow Palace, Xiaozhe. Does he intend to face the terrifying fire phoenix alone? Many cultivators in the surroundings recognized the figure, who was rushing towards the fire phoenix. Even Zhuowen's gaze fell on Xiaozhe. The fire phoenix's power was very strong. Even Zhuowen himself felt a little tricky. Zhuowen knew that with Xiaozhe's cultivation level, it was not enough to subdue the fire phoenix alone. With a wave of his sleeve, there was a clanging sound as fiery red chains flew out from his sleeve. The surface of these chains was burning with raging flames, growing and multiplying endlessly. The surface of the chain was engraved with all kinds of strange runes. When the chain appeared, the fire phoenix that was roaring wantonly immediately became anxious. It flapped its wings, wanting to get away from the chain. "Seal!" Xiaozhe lightly spat out. Shortly after, the fiery red chain soared into the sky. It was densely packed like ants as it constantly spread out, sealing off all the escape routes of the fire phoenix. Squeak! The fire phoenix stretched its neck and gave a long cry. It spread its wings, wanting to break through the defensive line of the chain. However, when it pounced towards the edge of the chain, it activated the countless divine runes on the chain. The fire phoenix seemed to be extremely afraid of the power of the divine runes, and quickly moved away from the edge of the chain. Clang! The corner of Xiaozhe's mouth slightly curled up. With a clench of his right hand, the fiery red chain started to converge towards the center. As the chain contracted, the space for the fire phoenix to dodge became smaller and smaller. In the end, it was tightly bound by the chain, unable to move. Whoosh! Xiaozhe took a step forward and arrived between the fire phoenix's eyebrows. With a suction force from his right hand, he took the crystal between the fire phoenix's eyebrows. After losing the crystal, the fire phoenix collapsed into countless sparks and was annihilated by the chain. 5,000 years of burning flame nectar was obtained just like that? What was Xiaozhe's method just now? The fire phoenix was actually unable to resist the chain. From the moment Xiaozhe faced the fire phoenix alone to the moment the fire phoenix was trapped, and the crystal between its eyebrows was taken out, it had only been 10 breaths of time. The cultivators who had experienced the terror of the fire phoenix all revealed looks of disbelief. They had experienced the fire phoenix's attacks and knew that it was not something that an ordinary profound sage could deal with. Even an ordinary heavenly sage might not be able to smoothly subdue it. Although Xiaozhe was very talented and powerful, possessing the strength of a Sky-Yin Sage Realm expert, at the peak of the profound Sage Realm, such strength was not enough to subdue the fire phoenix. The reason why the fire phoenix was so easily subdued was mainly because of the fiery red chain that came out of Xiaozhe's sleeve. That thing was probably secretly given to Xiaozhe by Zhou Tianzong. Zhuowen glanced at Zhou Tianzong, who was not far away. After seeing the smile on Zhou Tianzong's face, Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and thought of something. The last time the burning heavens and boiling sea opened, Zhou Tianzong had obtained the 5,000 years of burning flame nectar from it. Naturally, he was quite familiar with the characteristics of the burning flame nectar. Therefore, it was not surprising that he had given the method to restrain the burning flame nectar to Xiaozhe. At this moment, Xiaozhe's eyes were full of excitement as he stared at the lifelike phoenix crystal in his palm. Inside the crystal, a fiery red liquid was tumbling, revealing the image of a phoenix. At the same time, it was accompanied by the cry of a phoenix. This was the 5,000 years of burning flame nectar. Haha! Congratulations, nephew, for obtaining the 5,000 years of burning flame nectar. When Xiaozhe held the phoenix crystal, Zhou Tianzong couldn't help but clap his hands and cheer. Behind Zhou Tianzong, the palace master of the Snow Palace, Yuan Jibai, also revealed a gorgeous smile on her originally cold face. Xiaozhe had placed a lot of hopes and expectations on the Snow Palace. As the palace master of the Snow Palace, Yuan Jibai naturally hoped that Xiaozhe would become stronger and stronger. And this 5,000 years of burning flame nectar had the powerful effect of allowing a peak profound sage to break through to the heaven sage realm. How could Yuan Jibai not be happy for Xiaozhe? Hu Shanshan frowned slightly as he stared at the slightly weakened Hu Lai beside him. He said somewhat unhappily, "Hu Lai, you actually used the heavenly tiger escape technique. Could it be that you were forced into this state by Xiaozhe?" Hu Lai's eyes flickered. It was really difficult to talk about the fact that he had been defeated by Miefan. If Miefan had been a powerhouse of the sacred sky realm, he wouldn't have felt ashamed if he said that he had been defeated by Miefan. However, Miefan's cultivation was lower than his, and he had lost to him. This was a great loss of face. Seeing Hu Lai's hesitant look, Hu Shanshan's face turned ashen. He coldly snorted and said, "There's nothing shameful about being defeated by Xiaozhe. Xiaozhe's talent is indeed very strong. He has a chance to surpass Sister Jibai in the future." Hu Lai's face flushed red as he stammered, "I didn't lose to Xiaozhe. Or rather, I didn't encounter Xiaozhe in the burning heavens and boiling sea." "What? Not Xiaozhe? Then who is it?" Hu Shanshan couldn't help but be dumbfounded as he asked Hu Lai in a low voice. It was Miefan." Hu Lai stuttered for a long time before finally revealing the real culprit. "That Miefan? That Miefan is only at the pure profound sage realm. And don't you have the sacred sky treasure on you? How could you lose?" Hu Shanshan said in surprise. Hu Lai's face turned even redder, but he still said, "I did use the sacred sky treasure in the end, but it was broken by Miefan." "What? It was broken by Miefan? Could it be that Miefun has an even more powerful sacred treasure on him? Hu Shanshan's expression became serious. Hu Lai stole a glance at Hu Shanshan and sighed softly. It was broken by that guy with his bare hands. That guy's body is very terrifying. Hu Shanshan discovered that he was actually speechless at this moment. He could accept that Hu Lai had lost to Miefun, whose cultivation was lower than his. Even if Hu Lai had used the sacred sky treasure and still lost, he could still accept it. However, the only thing he could not accept was that Miefun had actually broken the sacred sky treasure with his bare hands. This was simply too inconceivable. How could the strength of the physical body be so strong that even the sacred sky treasure could be broken with his bare hands? This directly overturned Hu Shanshan's worldview and values. Sect Master Hu Lai said in shame. Chapter 1561. Peachwood Immortal Slaying Swordshio Zay floated in the air, enjoying the envious gazes of the people below. His chin was slightly raised, and his eyes were filled with pride. He knew that at this moment, he was the biggest winner of this burning the heavens and boiling the seas. He was fully deserving of the title of main character. He was even looking at Miefun, who was stepping on Prince Raven and Jiang Liqing. Although he didn't say anything, his expression made his intentions clear. It seems that the Burning Heaven sect and the Snow Palace have long been in cahoots. If I'm not wrong, the fiery red chain that Xiao Zhe used just now should have been given to him by Sect Master Zhou, right? Isn't burning the heavens and boiling the seas meant for the juniors present? Now that Sect Master Zhou has opened the door for Xiao Zhe, isn't it unreasonable? Suddenly, an indifferent and untimely voice slowly sounded, attracting the attention of the surrounding people. Everyone looked over and found that the one who spoke was none other than Miefun, who was stepping on Prince Raven and Jiang Liqing. Being stared at by so many cultivators at once, even Jiang Liqing and Prince Raven, who had good temperaments, couldn't help but blush. After all, their current postures looked a little sullen. Of course, Zhuo Wen's words were indeed reasonable. Anyone could see that the Fire Phoenix was not simple. Even if Xiao Zhe's talent was extremely high, and he was extremely strong, he was still only at the peak of the profound sage realm. It would not be easy to subdue a Fire Phoenix. But now, Xiao Zhe had relied on the fiery red chain to completely subdue the Fire Phoenix in 10 breaths of time. This made people suspect that there was something fishy going on. And after Zhuowen said this, many people came to their senses and looked at Xiao Zhe and the Burning Heaven sect with strange gazes. Xiao Zhe slowly turned his head and coldly stared at Zhuowen, saying, "Colluding? You really know how to slander others. I was the one who subdued the 5,000 years old burning flame nectar. How can you slander me and the Burning Heaven sect like this? How should I punish you?" After saying this, Xiao Zhe suddenly took a step forward, and a terrifying snowstorm descended from the sky. It was an extremely magnificent sight. Zhou Tianzong, who was originally standing in the Burning Heaven Hall, slowly narrowed his eyes and said, "Miefun, you can't speak such baseless words. Our Burning Heaven sect has always been impartial. If you dare to speak such slanderous words, don't blame this old one for righteously. And nephew Xiao Yin, as Xiao Zhe, as you said Xiao Zhe, Xiao 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 Xiao, Xiao Xiao Xiao, Xiao Xiao Zhe, Xiao Xiao, Xiao Xiao Luan, Xiao Xiao Xiao, Xiao 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 Xiao, Xiao Xiao Xiao." The leaders of these forces looked at each other. In the end, they didn't dare to stand out and defy Zhou Tianzong. They all nodded and agreed. Looking at everyone's reaction, Zhou Tianzong smiled and said, "Everyone has no objections. Could it be that you, Miefun, have an objection?" However, Yu Shiai sneered and said, "Looks like it's just jealousy causing mischief. You're just a coward who can't eat grapes and say the grapes are sour." Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and stared at Yu Zhe. "You're saying that I'm sour grapes because I can't eat them? All right then. This 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar will be yours to subdue. However, Sect Master Zhou didn't say that I can't snatch it from your hands, right?" Xiao Zhe was stunned for a moment before he burst into laughter. "You want to snatch the 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar from my hands? Just you? What a joke. Xiaozhe laughed loudly, and there was some disdain in his eyes. Obviously, he looked down on Miefun. After all, the latter was only at the pure profound saint realm, which was a small realm lower than him. How could such a cultivation be his match? Many of the surrounding people had strange looks on their faces. Obviously, Miefun's suggestion of forceful robbery had surprised them. However, Hu Lai, who was standing behind the ferocious tiger sect master, had a strange look on his face. He had fought with Miefun before, and he knew that Miefun was so terrifying that he couldn't breathe. There was no doubt that if Miefun and Xiaozhe were to fight, Xiaozhe would lose miserably. Although Hu Lai hadn't fought with Xiaozhe before, he knew that even if Xiaozhe was stronger than him, there was a limit to how much stronger he was. However, Miefun had directly suppressed him to the point that he couldn't breathe. There was no doubt that his battle strength wasn't on the same level as Miefun. Hu Hanshan had a strange look on his face. He had heard about how terrifying Miefun was from Hu Lai. If Xiaozhe were to fight with Miefun, he wouldn't have a good ending. However, Hu Hanshan didn't speak carelessly about Miefun, and he couldn't be bothered to remind Xiaozhe. He wasn't related to Xiaozhe, and Hu Lai's defeat at Miefun's hands wasn't a glorious matter. Naturally, he wouldn't speak carelessly. Yuan Jibai, the palace master of Snow Palace, and Zhou Tianzong, the sect master of Burning Heaven sect, raised the corners of their mouths. The two of them knew Xiaozhe's strength very well. To a certain extent, Xiaozhe was even stronger than Hu Lai. He possessed the bloodline of the Black Tortoise, and had mastered many nomological laws. Apart from the monstrous geniuses of the central region, no one in the younger generation of the other four major regions could compare to him. Miefun seemed to have an unknown origin, and his strength seemed to be pretty good. However, in the eyes of Yuan Jibai and Zhou Tianzong, Miefun wasn't Xiaozhe's match. Mu Chenxue, who was standing not far away, wrinkled her nose. She couldn't help but worry about Miefun. What's wrong with me? I don't know Miefun, so why am I worried about him? Mu Chenxue muttered to herself. At the same time, she took out the mysterious underworld pearl and examined it carefully. Ever since she had woken up in the Saint Lady Pavilion, the black pearl had been by her side. The mysterious underworld pearl was actually of little value to her. It couldn't provide her with any protection at all. However, Mu Chenxue couldn't bear to throw it away. She subconsciously felt that the mysterious underworld pearl was very important to her. It was given to her by a very, very important person. However, when she tried to recall who it was, she couldn't remember. She only felt a splitting headache. Is this pearl related to Miefun? Mu Chenxue's beautiful eyes wrinkled as she muttered softly. After Xiaozhe finished laughing, he held the phoenix crystal in his right hand and said to Zhuowen in a provocative manner, "Since you want to snatch this 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar, then come at me. However, I won't care if you lose your life because of it." The corners of Zhuowen's mouth curled up slightly as he gazed at Yu Xiai's fearless expression, and he said, "That's what you said. Then I'll directly rob you. Don't blame me if you die at that time." As he spoke, Zhuowen's feet suddenly stomped on the ground, and he shot explosively towards Bathing Lake like an arrow that had left the bow. At the same time, he waved his right hand, and the four-killer sacred sword formation flew out from his spirit ring and revolved around his body like a loyal guard, protecting and escorting him. Xiaozhe's right hand withdrew and kept the phoenix crystal. Then he stomped his right foot in the air, and a snowstorm swept across the sky. A huge black tortoise shadow appeared behind Xiaozhe. "I'll finish you in one move." As he spoke, Xiaozhe pressed his right hand down. The black tortoise shadow behind him roared towards the sky. The snake's head and tail swept across the sky, bringing with it a terrifying snowstorm. The snowstorm was extremely vast and instantly enveloped Zhuowen's figure, causing everyone to be unable to see Zhuowen's figure clearly. Die! Xiaozhe didn't hold back at all, and used his full strength. He stepped out, and the snake's head drilled into the snowstorm, wanting to completely strangle Zhuowen inside. At the same time, Xiaozhe also arrived at the wind cave above the snowstorm. He pressed his right hand down, and the black tortoise's huge body drilled into it. Like a meat grinder, the snowstorm was completely crushed. How terrifying. Xiao Zhe used his full strength right from the start. Miefen's life is in danger. The surrounding people were moved. Xiao Zhe's strength was indeed terrifying. Just the Black Tortoise's bloodline power was enough to fight against a saint of the Yin Sky Saint realm. Hee, your young master is about to die. If you know what's good for you, you'd better let Yin Yin and Jiang Liqing go. Yin Wuxia stared at Lowe's and said coldly. When Zhuowen challenged Xiao Zhe, he had handed Prince Raven and Jiang Liqing over to Lowe's. Therefore, Jiang Xianwang and Yin Wuxia were still facing off against Lowe's. Because the hostages were in the hands of the other party, the two of them didn't dare to act recklessly. The one dying is not my young master but Xiao Zhe. Lowe's sneered. No one knew Zhuowen's strength better than him. That guy's strength was comparable to the Yang Sky Saint realm, or even stronger than that. A genius like Xiao Zhe was as insignificant as an ant to Zhuowen. It was simply impossible for him to compete with Zhuowen. You're lying through your teeth. Yin Wuxia's eyes were cold. Before he could finish his words, there was an earth-shaking muffled sound. Then, the violent black tortoise phantom suddenly let out a violent wail when it was smashed into the center of the blizzard. Then, the huge black tortoise phantom was directly pierced by long swords in front of everyone's eyes. At the same time, rays of sword light slashed down, and the black tortoise phantom was directly shattered into nothingness. The moment the divine sword shattered the black tortoise phantom, they tacitly combined together, and finally formed a huge light sword that pierced through the sky. Slash. The moment the huge light sword formed, an indifferent voice sounded. Then, the light sword slashed down from the sky, carrying with it a terrifying aura. When the black tortoise phantom was broken, Xiao Zhe felt a fishy sweetness and spat out a mouthful of blood. However, he didn't have time to care about the shock in his heart. With a wave of his sleeve, he roared and took out a simple wooden sword from his spirit ring. The wooden sword looked ordinary, but its surface was engraved with various runes. That's the Peachwood Immortal Slaying Sword. Yuan Jibai's beautiful eyes frowned. The Peachwood Immortal Slaying Sword was a Yang Sky Saint treasure that she had given to Xiao Zhe to save his life. This thing was extremely precious. Even though the Ice Snow Palace was large, they didn't have many treasures of this level. Chapter 1562. Instant Defeat. It's the Heavenly Yang Sacred Treasure. As expected of the Snow Palace, they actually gave such a sacred treasure to Bathing Zhe. How rich. This Miefen is really something. He actually forced Bathing Zhe to use the Heavenly Yang Sacred Treasure. However, the power of the Heavenly Yang Sacred Treasure is equivalent to the Heavenly Yang Sacred Realm. I'm afraid Miefen won't be able to gain any advantage. Feeling the power erupting from the Peachwood Immortal Slaying Sword, many knowledgeable warriors in the surroundings were visibly moved. Bathing Zhe's eyes were ferocious. He formed a sword seal with his right hand and pointed at the Peachwood Immortal Slaying Sword. Clang! The sound of metal clashing rang out. Then, the Peachwood Immortal Slaying Sword emitted a monstrous sword light like a violent ocean. Countless sword lights gathered and finally formed a majestic shadow. The shadow waved his right hand, and the Peachwood Immortal Slaying Sword was held in his hand. That power was like that of a peerless swordsman who could slay immortals. When the Peachwood appears, there are no immortals in the heavens. Bathing Lake's emotionless voice rang out. That imposing figure suddenly stepped out. His body was covered with sword light, and the Peachwood was in his hand. With a single slash, sword light filled the sky, covering the sky and covering the earth. The power of this sword moved even the experts of the older generation like Zhou Tianzong, Hu Bangshan, and Yuan Jibai. Rumble! The majestic phantom waved his right hand and unleashed a sword ray that slammed into the huge sword of light formed by the four-kill sacred sword formation. An earth-shattering sound reverberated through the entire sky. The huge sword of light formed by the four-kill sacred sword formation directly collapsed, turning back into sacred swords that dimmed and returned to Zhuo Wen's body. Heavenly Yang Sacred Treasure? Zhuo Wen narrowed his eyes. He was a little surprised. Bathing Zhe's value was higher than Tiger Fisher's. After all, The latter's strongest trump card was the Heavenly Yin Sacred Treasure. However, Bathing Zhe had the Heavenly Yang Sacred Treasure, which was one level higher. It was really shocking. "You're finished." Bathing Zhe was high up in the air, hovering above the majestic illusory figure. Looking down at Zhuowen, his eyes were filled with indifference. The Peachwood Immortal Slaying Sword was a life-saving item, given to him by Yuan Jibai. There were only a few treasures like this in the Snow Palace. It was extremely precious. However, Xiaozhe did not expect that Miefan would force him to use his final trump card. This was something he had not expected, but at the same time, his eyes were filled with killing intent. Facing Miefan, whose cultivation was lower than his, he was forced into such a situation. This was an absolute humiliation for him, so he had to make Miefan pay a heavy price. Thinking of this, Xiaozhe suddenly merged into the imposing shadow. His right hand gripped the Peachwood Immortal Slaying Sword, as if he was in control of all the power of the Peachwood Immortal Slaying Sword. Slash! Bathing Zhe took a step forward and slashed out with his sword. Sword light filled the sky, as if it was going to tear the sky apart. It was extremely terrifying. In the face of this terrifying sword light, Zhuowen waved his right hand and put away the 4-kill sacred sword array. He took a deep breath, and a blazing golden light erupted from his body. Within this golden light, 2 golden runes appeared and surged out from the surface of his skin. They began to revolve around his body, like 2 stars that were constantly rotating. Putting away the sacred weapon, he intends to use his physical body to resist? Is Miefan crazy? Seeing Zhuowen's action, many warriors exclaimed in their hearts. They felt that Miefan must have lost his mind. Although many cultivators knew that the exterminating incineration body was indeed unusual, it was basically impossible for it to reach the level of a sacred solar treasure. Or, it could be said that other cultivators simply didn't believe that the body could resist a sacred solar treasure. Whoosh! The sword light arrived in an instant, and was only a few inches away from Zhuowen's forehead. The sharp wind whistled past and blew Zhuowen's hair into a mess. But Zhuowen was not afraid. He struck out with his right hand, and the 2 golden runes around him suddenly expanded until they were dozens of feet long. They stood in front of Zhuowen like 2 terrifying golden walls. Boom! The sword light slammed into the golden runes, and was annihilated. However, the golden runes were not damaged at all, and remained intact. What is this? It actually blocked the full power of the Peachwood Immortal Slaying Sword? Xiaozhe's pupils shrank, and his body trembled in extreme shock. The solar sacred treasure is only SOO. Zhuowen's right hand slammed into the 2 golden runes in front of him. Then, the golden runes shot into the sky like 2 golden stars and rushed toward Xiaozhe. At the same time, Zhuowen leaped up and rushed toward Xiaozhe like a fierce tiger. Damn it! Xiaozhe cursed and slashed out with the Peachwood Immortal Slaying Sword. Countless sword lights piled together like a crescent moon hanging in the sky. Clang clang clang. However, the 2 golden runes were as hard as iron. The terrifying sword light from the Peachwood Immortal Slaying Sword only created sparks when it landed on the surface of the golden runes. This made Xiaozhe's mood even worse. Fortunately, the impact of the sword light slowed down the speed of the golden runes. Boom! However, Zhuowen arrived behind the golden runes and struck out with his palm. The 2 golden runes sped up and arrived in front of Xiaozhe in an instant. Clang! Xiaozhe slashed out with his sword and the world darkened. But when it landed on the golden runes, it was all bark and no bite. Watch me smash your Peachwood Immortal Slaying Sword. Zhuowen spat out these words indifferently. He picked up a piece of golden pattern and threw it at Bathing Swamp. The golden runes were as heavy as Mount Tai. Xiaozhe blocked with his sword but was still pushed back by the enormous force, his blood boiling. As Xiaozhe retreated, Zhuowen didn't slow down. He picked up another golden rune and smashed it again. As Zhuowen smashed it again and again, Xiaozhe was pushed back again and again. Even though the Peachwood Immortal Slaying Sword was mighty and mighty, it was still suppressed by the 9 revolution golden runes. Moreover, the sacred Yang treasure wasn't a sacred Yang treasure. Its power would gradually weaken as it was used. Following Zhuo Wen's random smashing, the brilliance on the surface of the peachwood immortal slaying sword in Shi Zhe's hand completely dimmed. Crack! A shattering sound resounded through the sky as Xiao Zhe retreated several hundred steps. Everyone's eyes fell on Xiao Zhe's hand. They were shocked to find that the peachwood immortal slaying sword in Xiao Zhe's hand was covered in cracks, as if it would collapse at any moment. The sacred Yang treasure's power is about to run out. What kind of monster is Miefun? He's only relying on his physical strength and the 2 golden runes to reduce Xiao Zhe's peachwood immortal slaying sword to this state. Everyone was in an uproar. There was no need to continue the battle. They already knew the final result. Miefun would definitely win. Xiao Zhe was trembling all over. A trace of blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. His surging blood couldn't calm down for a long time. When he saw the broken peachwood immortal slaying sword in his hand, he began to tremble in fear. Miefun was a monster. He'd taken the sacred Yang treasure head-on with his physical strength, and reduced his peachwood immortal slaying sword to this state. Swoosh! The wind howled, lifting Xiao Zhe's robes and flapping them loudly. Xiao Zhe jerked his head up, and was horrified to find that Miefun was hovering above him, looking down at him indifferently. His eyes were emotionless and indifferent to life. No! With a furious roar, Zhu Baozi slashed out with his peachwood immortal sword. A crescent-shaped sword radiance shot toward Zhuowen. However, Zhuowen didn't care. He clenched his right hand and 2 golden runes circled around it, forming a golden barrier. He punched out, and the crescent-shaped sword light collapsed. Uft! Xiao Zhe spat out a mouthful of blood. The peachwood immortal slaying sword in his hand completely collapsed, and he was sent flying. Whoosh! Zhuowen took a step forward, and like an arrow leaving the bow, he shot explosively toward Xianze, who was flying backwards. However, just as Zhuowen was about to reach Xiao Zhe, a terrifying black flame shot up into the sky and blocked Zhuowen's path. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and punched out with his right fist, smashing the black flame into smithereens. However, this black flame was like a wildfire. After smashing apart the black flame in front of it, there were more layers of black flame appearing behind it. In the deepest part of the black flame, there was a 3-meter-long writing brush floating in the air. The black flame was coming from this writing brush. Boom! 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 As the writing brush drew across the void, the surrounding black flame transformed into various exotic beasts. They rushed towards Zhuowen from all directions, as if they wanted to tear Zhuowen into pieces. Black flame brush. Zhuowen's face turned ugly. He recognized the writing brush at a glance. It was Zhou Tianzong's Yang Sky Saint weapon, the black flame brush. Back then, Zhou Tianzong's outer body incarnation had brought the black flame brush to the eastern land to capture Zhuowen. Boom! 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 Zhuowen punched out again and again, turning the surrounding exotic beasts into dust. Then he retreated a few thousand steps, and escaped the black flame brush's attack range. Xiao Zhe, who was flying backward, was intercepted by Yuan Jibai and brought back to her side. Sect leader Zhou, what is the meaning of this? Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and asked coldly. At this moment, everyone's eyes fell on Zhou Tianzong. The black flame brush was Zhou Tianzong's saint weapon. This was known to all. Therefore, when Zhou Tianzong helped Xiao Zhe block Miefun, many people were suspicious. Haha, little brother Miefun is indeed powerful. I admire you for being able to defeat the young palace master of Snow Palace. As for Xiao Zhe, since he has already lost to you, there is no need to kill him. Don't you think so? Zhou Tianzong said with a smile. Sect leader Zhou is right. However, since I have defeated Xiao Zhe, doesn't that mean that the 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar has a new owner? For a piece of trash like Xiao Zhe, even if he consumed the 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar, it would be a waste. Zhuowen calmed down completely and looked straight at Zhou Tianzong. Chapter 1563. Siege. Although Zhuowen's voice wasn't loud, the surrounding cultivators heard it clearly. Although Miefun said that Xiao Zhe was trash, the crowd didn't really think that Xiao Zhe was trash. They could only say that Miefun was too abnormal. Zhou Tianzong slowly narrowed his eyes, then smiled and said, "Little brother Miefun, what do you mean? Before the battle, you didn't say that whoever won would get the 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar. Instead, it depended on whether you had the ability to snatch it. Although you won, you didn't get the burning flame nectar. So you have no reason to ask Xiaozhe to give it to you, right?" As soon as these words came out, the surrounding cultivators fell silent. There was no doubt that Zhou Tianzong's words were protecting Xiaozhe. Zhuwen's face turned cold and said, "Sect Master Zhou, are you slapping your own face? If you didn't suddenly stop me, do you think I wouldn't have been able to snatch the 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar? Now you're saying this to me. Don't you feel ashamed?" Zhou Tianzong's face turned ugly and said, "I say, little brother Miefun, you better watch your words. This is my Burning Heaven sect's territory. Even if you're a real dragon with a powerful background, you still have to behave yourself. You really don't have any respect for your elders." Zhuwen sneered. His right foot suddenly stomped on the void, and he instantly shot out towards Yuan Jibai. "You're courting death." Zhou Tianzong's face changed slightly, revealing a look of anger. He didn't expect Miefun to not give him any face. He had clearly stopped him, but this kid still didn't stop. He was simply courting death. Boom! In the void, the dark flame brush swept out stroke by stroke, interweaving extremely dazzling black flames. The black flames were like a fire dragon that surrounded Zhuwen, wanting to devour him completely. Zhuwen snorted and pulled out the fiery red belt from his waist with his right hand. Then the fiery red belt formed a layer of red magma defense. The black flames bombarded the surface of the red magma defense, but were unable to penetrate it at all. Zhuwen, on the other hand, was like a hot knife through butter as he rushed towards Yuan Jibai. "What?" Zhou Tianzong was shocked. He didn't expect the dark flame brush to be blocked. His gaze fell on Zhuwen's lava belt as his expression flickered. For some reason, Miefun's belt gave him a sense of dread. It was a strange feeling. It was subtle, but the presence of the belt was hidden. Zhou Tianzong could not tell what level the belt was. "Miefun, you're too presumptuous. Since you're so rude, don't blame me for being unjust." Zhou Tianzong's words were filled with righteousness. He sneered and rushed towards Zhuwen. The black flame brush in his hand continued to draw many portraits, using the black flame as a medium to materialize them. Boom! However, just as Zhou Tianzong was about to reach Zhuwen's side, an enormous mountain appeared in front of Zhou Tianzong and blocked his path. Damn it, get out of my way!" Zhou Tianzong threw out a punch. The black flames surged and hit the surface of the giant mountain. However, the giant mountain did not move. Instead, it was Zhou Tianzong who retreated a dozen steps looking surprised. Lo stood at the top of the 18th mountain, holding Prince Raven in his left hand and Jiang Liqing in his right. He looked down at Zhou Tianzong and said, "You'd better give up on the idea of stopping my young master." Not far away, Yin Wuxia and King Jiangxian, who were confronting Lo's, looked at each other with murderous intent. Miefun doesn't know what's good for him. He dares to provoke the Burning Heaven sect and the Snow Palace. This is our chance to capture Miefun. I don't believe that the bald man won't release Yin Yin and Jiang Liqing. Yin Wuxia said to King Jiangxian. King Jiangxian said in a deep voice, "Now is the time. Let's do it." After saying that, King Jiangxian took a step forward and rushed toward Zhuwen. Yin Wuxia laughed and followed closely behind King Jiangxian. Yin Wuxia and King Jiangxian have made their move. Miefun is in trouble. Miefun is too arrogant. Bathing Zhe is the young palace master of the Snow Palace, and the main character of the marriage between the Burning Heaven sect and the Snow Palace. Yet he provoked Bathing Zhe. It's not worth it. When Yin Wuxia and King Jiangxian made their move, many warriors shook their heads and sighed. They felt that Miefun was doomed. "Master, we have to help Miefun. He helped the Nine Saints Heavenly Sect a lot in the burning heavens and boiling seas." Xia Bingyu's beautiful eyes were full of worry as she pleaded with Tianyu Saint. Tianyu Saint's eyes flickered. In the end, he shook his head and sighed. "Bingyu, the Nine Saints Heavenly Sect doesn't want to get involved in this mess. Of course, we don't have the qualifications to do so. You know the situation of the Nine Saints Heavenly Sect. Although we have a deep foundation, we are still slightly inferior to the Dark Crow sect and the Jiangxian family. Moreover, Miefan is too audacious to provoke the Burning Heaven sect. We can't get involved in this mess. Xia Bingyu was anxious. She wanted to help Miefan, but she knew that her cultivation was too low. Moreover, Tianyu Saint didn't make a move. She could only watch helplessly as Yin Wuxia and King Jiangxian caught up with Miefan. Little bastard, I'll let you be arrogant. Today, I'll capture you and make you suffer a fate worse than death. Yin Wuxia and King Jiangxian rushed over. Yin Wuxia laughed strangely. His sharp voice was like that of a strange owl. It was extremely terrifying. Zhuo Wen's eyes were indifferent. He coldly stared at Yin Wuxia and Jiangxian Wang and said, I will give you two a chance. If you leave now, it is not too late. Otherwise, you will all die. The crowd was in an uproar. Miefan was too arrogant. He dared to say such unrestrained words in front of Yin Wuxia and King Jiangxian, who were of the older generation. Yin Wuxia was at the Yin Sky Saint layer and King Jiangxian was at the Yang Sky Saint layer. Even Zhou Tianzong wouldn't dare to be careless in front of them. However, Miefan dared to say that if they didn't leave, they would both die. Little bastard, there's a limit to your arrogance. You're in danger, and you still dare to be so presumptuous. You don't know how to write the word death. Jiangxian Wang couldn't help but curse. This Miefan was too arrogant and infuriating. Both of them were overlords of their respective territories. But this junior in front of them didn't even put them in his eyes. How could they tolerate this? Die. After saying that, King Jiangxian took out a long sword that was a saint artifact of the Yin sky. The surface of the sword was covered with golden words. The words were elegant and clean, as if they were written by an ancient sage. The virtuous paragon sword is the most precious treasure of the Jiangxian clan. Even though it's a Yin Sky Saint tool, the virtuous paragon sword has been blessed with many saint techniques by the previous masters of the Jiangxian clan. It's already in a transformation stage. It's said that it's not far from becoming a Yang Sky Saint tool. It's far superior to ordinary Yin Sky Saint tools. When King Jiangxian took out the sword, many people's expressions changed. They recognized the origin of King Jiangxian's saint tool. That's the Yin Bone Scepter. What a thick smell of blood. How many creatures must it have devoured to create such a terrifying smell? It's almost suffocating to the nose. After King Jiangxian took out the virtuous paragon sword, Yin Wuxia also took out a Yin Sky Saint tool, the Yin Bone Scepter. The Yin Bone Scepter was made of bones. However, these bones were not white, but incomparably black. It seemed that the owner of these bones had been poisoned. At the top of the scepter was a palm-sized skull. The skull's hollow eyes were spurting out a thick blood qi. Without a doubt, the Yin Bone Scepter that Yin Wuxia took out was not much weaker than King Jiangxian's virtuous paragon sword. Yin Wuxia, you're still the same as before. You don't walk the right path in order to improve quickly. King Jiangxian's eyes revealed a trace of disdain. This was the first time he saw Yin Wuxia take out the Yin Bone Scepter. However, he had heard rumors about the Yin Bone Scepter. It was said that the Yin Bone Scepter was originally a profound saint tool. However, by continuously absorbing the blood essence of creatures, it could continuously evolve. Of course, the more terrifying the creature's cultivation was, the more perfect the Yin Bone Scepter could evolve. To be able to evolve a profound saint tool into a Yin Sky Saint tool, Yin Wuxia must have let the Yin Bone Scepter absorb the blood essence of countless creatures. It was not an exaggeration to describe it as a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Hee. As long as I can quickly increase my strength, what's wrong with using unscrupulous means? King Jiangxian, I'm not a hypocrite like you. If I want to do something, I won't choose not to do it because of other people's slanders. Yin Wuxia said indifferently. Hearing Yin Wuxia's sarcastic words, King Jiangxian slightly frowned and said indifferently, no need to talk nonsense. Quickly take down this little bastard to avoid any more trouble. That's natural, hee. Yin Wuxia laughed cruelly. Soon after, the Yin Bone Scepter in his right hand pointed at the void. Endless wailing sounds came from the scepter, as if it contained hell. Boom! Blood qi gushed out. forming a huge blood-red skull. The blood-red skull opened its mouth and covered Zhuowen. King Jiangxian was not careless. He quickly formed a sword technique with his right hand and pointed at the void. The virtuous paragon sword soared into the sky. The golden words on its surface lit up, and a virtuous paragon phantom appeared. This virtuous paragon phantom held the virtuous paragon sword and faced Zhuowen from below. It wanted to cut Zhuowen in half. With the bloody skull above and the virtuous paragon sword below, Zhuowen was trapped in an airtight encirclement for a moment. Many warriors in the surroundings were trembling in the face of these two attacks. These two attacks were too terrifying. They felt their bodies go soft and did not have any thoughts of resisting. Little guy, I'm counting on you. Annihilate these two attacks. Zhuowen stood in the air, smiling faintly at the belt around his waist. Boom! Chapter 1564. Powerful. The soul-devouring magma river was a terrifying saint artifact on the level of a heaven-defying saint artifact. Even though Zhuowen was unable to unleash the full power of a heaven-defying saint artifact, it was not something saint artifacts on the level of Yin Sky saint artifacts and Yang Sky saint artifacts could compare to. The huge magma river ran through the entire sky. In an instant, the bloody skull and the virtuous paragon sword were swatted away by this terrifying magma river. What? Jiangxian King and Yin Wuxia were shocked. Whether it was the Yin Bone Scepter or the virtuous paragon sword, they were both top-grade Yin Sky saint artifacts. Even a Yang Sky saint artifact couldn't send them flying so easily. However, the magma river that inexplicably rushed out of Miefen's body was so terrifying that the Yin Bone Scepter and the virtuous paragon sword were sent flying so easily. Heaven-defying saint artifact? Zhou Tianzong, Yuan Jibai, and Hu Dunshan suddenly stood up. As three of the overlords of the four regions, they had naturally seen heaven-defying saint artifacts. Of course, they had only seen them. Their own sects didn't have such a terrifying saint artifact. Even the purple flame heavenly blade that Zhou Tianzong's main body had brought to the eastern lands was only a sky saint artifact. It was still one grade lower than a heaven-defying saint artifact. Zhou Tianzong and the other two's voices weren't low. Naturally, many warriors around the burning sky square heard the three's words. Especially when the words heaven-defying saint artifact entered their ears, everyone was shocked. Not good, let's go. Jiangxian King and Yin Wushua's faces turned pale in an instant. With a scream, they retrieved the Yin Bone Scepter and the virtuous paragon sword and quickly fled into the distance. Heaven-defying saint artifact. This thing was 3 grades higher than the Yin Bone Scepter and the virtuous paragon sword in their hands. Even if Miefun was only a profound sage and couldn't display the full power of a heaven-defying saint artifact, it was enough to crush their Yin Sky saint artifacts. Therefore, after the two learned that the magma river was a heaven-defying saint artifact, they didn't even care about their own status and immediately fled. Flee now. Is it too late? Zhuowen had a sneer on his face. He made a hand seal with his right hand, and the river of magma that stretched across the horizon rushed forward, blocking the path of Jiangxian Wang and Yin Wuxia. On the other hand, Zhuowen stepped on the magma flowing against the current and slowly walked over. His eyes were cold and emotionless as he stared at the two of them. His gaze was filled with brutality. They didn't know why, but when Yin Wuxia and King Jiangxian saw the tyrannical look in Zhuowen's eyes, their hearts began to throb. Experts who had reached their level of cultivation were basically able to remain calm and unaffected by external matters. However, at this moment, Zhuowen's gaze caused them to palpitate. It was truly inconceivable. I really didn't expect you to have a heaven-defying sacred artifact. You're just a mere profound sage. Do you think that you can defeat us just because you have a heaven-defying sacred artifact? You are really too naive, Yin Wuxia said in a weak voice. As for King Jiangxian, his brows furrowed, revealing a heavy expression. It's you who are naive. Whether I can defeat you or not, we'll know once we try. Why are you being so noisy here? Zhuowen lightly spat out these words. Then, he pressed down with his right hand and the spirit-devouring magma river formed a terrifying vortex that swept King Jiang Xianwang and Yin Wuxia into it. "Miafun, you dare?" King Jiang Xianwang and Yin Wuxia both shouted at the same time. However, the magma vortex was too fast, and it instantly enveloped the two of them, causing their figures to completely disappear. Boom! The magma river suddenly contracted, and with a thunderous sound and mournful screams, the magma river suddenly shrank to the extreme and then exploded. Countless magma splashed out and overflowed in the air, causing a strange burning smell to spread. The figures of Yin Wuxia and King Jiang Xianwang never appeared again. Zhuowen withdrew his sleeve, and 2 rays of light flew into his hand. These 2 rays of light converged, revealing their true appearance. They were King Jiang Xianwang's virtuous sage sword and Yin Wuxia's Yin bone scepter. However, the brilliance on the surface of these 2 saint tools was somewhat dim. Obviously, they had suffered a lot of damage during the explosion of the magma river. These 2 saint tools should be able to be used after a little repair. Putting away the 2 saint tools, Zhuowen whispered, and the corners of his mouth curved up. Hiss! After a long period of silence, the sound of people sucking in cold air finally broke this anxious and uneasy silence. Everyone was dumbfounded. They stared at the magma rain that filled the sky and fell into a strange silence. King Jiang Xianwang and Yin Wuxia are both dead, and not even their bones are left. Finally, someone murmured in a low voice, narrating the inconceivable, yet clear reality before their eyes. Family head. Sect head. On the 18th mountain, Prince Raven and Jiang Liqing, who were held in the hands of Lows, trembled and shouted, as if they still couldn't believe what had happened in front of them. People from the Dark Crow sect and the Jiangxian family, do you still want to stop me? Zhuowen stepped on the lava river and looked down at the Jiangxian family and the other high-level officials of the Dark Crow sect, who were standing in front of him in a daze. He said word by word. However, the response to Zhuowen was a long silence. King Jiang Xianwang and Yin Wuxia were dead. How could they dare to provoke Miafun? Wasn't it just courting death? Miafun, can you let my young master go? Our family head has been killed. With Miafun's background, you don't need to put my Jiangxian family in your eyes. This old man begs Miafun to let my young master go. Suddenly, Elder Jian walked out from the Jiangxian family's seat trembling. He knelt down on the ground and said sincerely, Jiang Liqing has provoked me many times. I have already forgiven him by not killing him. You still want me to let him go? Do you think it's possible? Zhuowen said, no longer paying attention to Elder Jian. He suddenly landed on the sky above the burning sky hall. Elder Jian sighed, slowly stood up and returned to his seat. He didn't dare to speak anymore. He knew that Miafun didn't plan to let Jiang Liqing go. However, Miafun didn't kill Jiang Liqing. To the Jiangxian family, it was a blessing in disguise. Sect Master Zhou, Palace Master Yuan, I Miafun, am not a troublemaker. As long as you hand over the 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar in the hands of that trash, I Miafun will not cause any more trouble. Zhuowen's body was surrounded by magma. He looked like a god and a demon. His voice was so loud that it made everyone's eardrums hurt. At this moment, Zhou Tianzong held the dark flame brush and slowly landed near Yuan Jibai. Lows also landed beside Zhuowen, with the 18th mountain. Facing Zhuowen's fearless questioning, Zhou Tianzong and Yuan Jibai's faces turned ugly. At the same time, they were shocked in their hearts. They didn't expect that Miafun would have a heaven-defying saint artifact. It was beyond their expectations. Generally speaking, only the forces of the central region would have such a saint artifact. However, Miafun had one. Without a doubt, this mysterious Miafun probably came from one of the bigger forces in the central region. This was the most reasonable explanation. Because of this speculation, Zhou Tianzong and Yuan Jibai suddenly became afraid of taking action. In the central region, there were many powerful forces, especially the Primal Chaos Temple, the 4 great battlefields, and the 9 great sacred talisman clans. They were existences that surpassed all the other forces in the central region. Even those forces that weren't as strong as the 9 great sacred talisman clans, the Burning Heaven sect, and the Snow Palace, combined would barely be able to catch up. Forces like the Burning Heaven sect and the Snow Palace could indeed dominate one of the 4 great domains. However, in the central region, which was full of powerful forces, they were probably below average. Therefore, after guessing that Miefun was a disciple of a force in the central region, Zhou Tianzong and Yuan Jibai didn't dare to act recklessly. However, they didn't want to compromise either. After all, this was the territory of the Burning Heaven sect. If they compromised with a junior, the Burning Heaven sect would lose all its face. Xiaozhe also noticed the hesitation on Zhou Tianzong and Yuan Jibai's faces. He quickly said, "Palace Master and Sect Leader Zhou, don't be fooled by this little bastard. This guy is deliberately causing trouble. How can we hand over the 5,000 years of burning flame nectar just like that?" Xiaozhe was filled with hatred. The 5,000 years of burning flame nectar was the key to helping him break through to the heavenly saint realm. How could he give it up just like that? If he missed this opportunity, he didn't know how long it would take for him to break through to the heavenly saint realm on his own. "My little friend Miefun, how about this? We'll give this 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar to nephew Xianzi first. After this marriage, my Burning Heaven sect will definitely treat little friend Miefun as an honored guest. At that time, we'll give you something that's not inferior to this 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar." Zhou Tianzong's tone was much more courteous than before, as he had his suspicions and was hesitant to act rashly. "The Snow Palace will also open the door for you, my little friend Miefun, as long as you can help us with this small favor." Yuan Jibai cupped her hands and said. Xiaozhe felt extremely aggrieved when he saw this. It was Miefun who was overbearing and had beaten him to such a state. Now, Yuan Jibai and Zhou Tianzong were treating him as a distinguished guest. Xiaozhe felt extremely unbalanced. Of course, even if he felt unbalanced, there was nothing he could do. He knew that Yuan Jibai and Zhou Tianzong had guessed that Miefun might be from a powerful force. That was why they were so cautious. "My little friend Miefun is really amazing. He actually made the Palace Master of the Snow Palace and the sect leader of the Burning Heaven sect treat him so courteously." In the seats of the 9 Saints' heavenly sect, the Tianyu sage was in disbelief. After all, Miefun didn't care about the reputation of the Burning Heaven sect and the Snow Palace. He even taught Xiaozhe a lesson. It could be said that he was extremely presumptuous and arrogant. In the end, he was treated so courteously. The surrounding people were also shocked. Their eyes fell on Miefun. They knew that since Zhou Tianzong and Yuan Jibai had put down their pride, Miefun should stop. Although it felt like an empty promise, at least they gave Miefun a way out. "The Burning Heaven sect and the Snow Palace are nothing. Do I need to be your distinguished guest? I don't need these. I want the 5,000 years of burning flame nectar now." Chapter 1565. Disguised Zhou Tianzong and Yuan Jibai's faces stiffened. They raised their heads and stared at Zhuowen. They didn't expect Miefun to be so ungrateful, even though they had already given him a way out. "Little friend Miefun, I think you're deliberately causing trouble, right? Do you really think that my Burning Heaven sect is afraid of you?" Zhou Tianzong's eyes gradually turned cold as he said gloomily, "I really thought that your Burning Heaven sect is afraid of me. Today, I, Miefun, will take the 5,000 years burning flame nectar. Isn't it a waste to give it to a trash? Giving it to me is the best way to get it," Zhuowen said indifferently. As soon as these words came out, the whole place was in an uproar. Miefun was too arrogant, but at the same time, there were many people who looked at him with ridicule. They wanted to see what Miefun would do next. Miefun's strength was not bad, and he also had a heaven-defying saint artifact. Coupled with the bald man, his battle strength was actually very terrifying. However, if he forced the Burning Heaven sect and Snow Palace into a corner, Miefun wouldn't be able to gain the slightest advantage. In the eyes of the crowd, Miefun's action was very foolish. As for Bai Shi, who was still recuperating, he was so angry that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Miefun was too hateful, calling him trash every time he opened his mouth. For someone as proud and arrogant as him, It was really unbearable. As for Mu Qinxue, she was standing among the Burning Heaven sect's team. Her pair of beautiful eyes silently sized up all of this, but she didn't do anything. She just looked on coldly from the side. Good. You've really gone too far. 18 Black Flame Envoys form the Great Black Flame Array. Today, no matter how amazing your background is, my Burning Heaven sect will let you taste the power of my Burning Heaven sect. Zhou Tianzong clapped his hands and laughed in anger. The 18 Black Flame Envoys, who had been standing respectfully behind him, responded and flew up into the sky, leaving 18 long black flame tails in the sky. In an instant, the black flame soared into the sky and turned into a huge black phoenix. The aura that leaked out from its body was like a flood, constantly surging and surging, causing many of the warriors present to tremble and their legs to tremble. The Black Phoenix was a terrifying offensive formation formed by 18 saints. Once this formation was used, even ordinary heavenly saints would have to retreat. It was extremely famous in the southern barbarian lands. Therefore, when the Black Phoenix spread its wings and soared into the sky, many of the leaders in the seats were shocked, and their breathing quickened. The Black Phoenix formation formed by the 18 Black Flame Envoys was famous in the southern barbarian. It had once conquered the entire southern barbarian for the Burning Heaven sect, subduing one force after another. Therefore, when the masters of those forces saw this Black Phoenix, they subconsciously felt fear. Sect Master, there's no need to set up the Black Flame formation for such a small matter, right? A voice as pleasant as an oriole's came. Mu Qinxue, who had been silently watching, slowly walked over. Looking at the Black Phoenix in the sky, she frowned and said, Chen Shui, don't worry about this matter. This Miefan has gone too far. If we don't teach him a lesson today, how can we spread the name of your Burning Heaven sect? Yuzha said with a gloomy face. He didn't expect Mu Qinxue to stand up. She was his fiancée, and now she stood up for another man. It was easy to imagine how bad Yuzha's mood was. Ha! Do you really think I only have these people in my hands? Zhuan laughed. Zhou Tianzong's eyes narrowed and his heart trembled. Could it be that Miefan didn't only bring a bald man? Just the strength of the bald man alone couldn't be underestimated. Perhaps the other people brought by Miefan wouldn't be too bad. Senior Lucy, Senior Mais, you should come out as well. Let the Burning Heaven sect see if we have the qualifications to challenge them. Zhuan's indifferent voice slowly came out. Following that, two terrifying sonic booms came from the sky. Honglong! Two sacred mountains that connected the heavens and the earth suddenly fell into the ruins of the Burning Heaven Plaza, standing side by side with the 18th mountain. At the top of the two mountains, there were two tall figures silently standing there. Of the two figures, one was a middle-aged man with long hair and 3 red lines on his forehead. The other was a young man with a cold face and cold eyes, carrying a wide stone sword on his back. These two people were none other than the 16th mountain god Mais and the 17th mountain god Lucy. After summoning Long Xiaotian and the other 3, Zhuan also secretly summoned these two people. Before his identity was exposed, Zhuan knew that he could rely on the power of the 3 mountain gods to completely intimidate the forces present, including the Burning Heaven sect. After all, the identity of Miefan that Zhuan disguised as was mysterious, and his origin was unknown. Coupled with his young age, terrifying strength, and numerous trump cards, it was easy for people to associate him with a disciple of a major force in the Middle Earth. Zhuan was taking advantage of people's guesses, so he acted as arrogant as possible, and even looked down on the Burning Heaven sect. After all, the Burning Heaven sect's influence in the Middle Earth was only below average. If the Miefan that Zhuan disguised as was really from the Middle Earth, then he must have high standards but low abilities. Naturally, he wouldn't think highly of the Burning Heaven sect and the Snow Palace. If he really compromised with the Burning Heaven sect, then Zhou Tianzong would probably be suspicious. Therefore, at this moment, Zhuan had to act. Moreover, he had to act decently and act extremely pretentious. This Dragon Lord gives you full marks for acting pretentious. In his sea of consciousness, Xiaohei gave him a thumbs up and couldn't help but click his tongue in wonder. In an instant, the 3 sacred mountains spanned across the burning heaven plaza, almost connecting the heavens and the earth, shocking everyone. Even Zhou Tianzong felt a trace of reverence. Lo's was already difficult enough to deal with, but this Miefan actually had 2 more. What kind of major force would send 3 such experts to protect him? Moreover, this indirectly showed that Miefan's identity wasn't ordinary. At this moment, Zhou Tianzong thought about many things. In the end, he waved his hand and dismissed the Black Phoenix. Then he cupped his hands towards Zhuowen and smiled. I wonder if little friend Miefan is from the Middle Earth? Zhuowen raised his head slightly and said pretentiously, since Sect Master has already guessed it, why are you still asking such a question? Hearing this, Zhou Tianzong's heart trembled. On the other hand, Hu Benshan and Yuan Jibai looked at each other. They wouldn't act rashly. Although the 3 major forces combined weren't afraid of Miefan, and the other 3, they were wary of the huge force behind Miefan. If Miefan was really a disciple of a major force in the Middle Earth, they would be in deep trouble if they really offended such a person. Little friend Miefan, you should at least tell us about your background. That way we will be convinced, right? Zhou Tianzong asked cautiously. Zhuowen waved his sleeve and took out a token in his hand. He showed it to Zhou Tianzong and said, look at this. You should know my background. The token was simple and unadorned. However, it faintly emitted a light that made one's heart palpitate. The front of the token was engraved with the word chaos, while the back was engraved with the word chaos. Chaos Temple? Zhou Tianzong was so shocked that his jaw almost fell off. Even Yuan Jibai and Hu Benshan's jaws dropped. They didn't know what to say. Hu Benshan was even more relieved. Originally, he was still brooding about being defeated by Miefan. However, he was relieved now. It was reasonable for a genius from the Chaos Temple to defeat him. The leaders of many forces were in an uproar. Clearly, they didn't expect a disciple of the Chaos Temple to come to the southern wilderness. This was something that no one had expected. So little friend Miefan is from the Chaos Temple. Forgive me for my poor eyesight. I didn't see through your background. I hope you don't blame me. Zhou Tianzong smiled warmly. The Chaos Temple is famous even in the 4 major regions. Everyone knows about it. Hu Benshan and Yuan Jibai also clasped their hands together. Their eyes were full of enthusiasm. They naturally didn't dare to slight a disciple of the Chaos Temple. He's actually a disciple of the Chaos Temple. How is this possible? Hu Benshan muttered to himself with a pale face. Zhuowen naturally kept the token. This token was found in the fragments of Chao Rong's body. Back then, the heavenly insects had torn apart and devoured Chao Rong's corpse, destroying all the spirit rings on his body. However, the medallion that represented his identity was still intact. Later on, it was found by the Long family and handed to Zhuowen. Before entering the southern wilderness, Zhuowen had already thought of this plan. He knew that the identity of a disciple of the Chaos Temple was extremely useful in the 4 major regions. Haha, sect leader Zhou, you don't have to give the 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar to that trash. Give it to me. Zhuowen said with a faint smile. Zhou Tianzong's eyes flickered. He finally came to Hu Benshan's side. Yuan Jibai didn't stop Zhou Tianzong. Nephew Mu, I'll have to trouble you this time. Hand over the 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar. I'll compensate you after this. Zhou Tianzong said helplessly. Hu Benshan's face turned pale, especially when he felt the mocking gazes of the people around him. He felt extremely humiliated, but there was nothing he could do. Forcing a smile, Hu Benshan took out the phoenix crystal and handed it to Zhou Tianzong. He said, Sect leader, take it. Zhou Tianzong took the phoenix crystal and carefully handed it to Zhuowen. He smiled and said, Miefan, this 5,000-year-old burning flame nectar is yours. You can take it. Zhuowen took the phoenix crystal without hesitation. His gaze fell on Hu Benshan again. He said, the young palace master of the Snow Palace was very arrogant before. Why don't I fight with him again? Let's see who's more arrogant and domineering. As soon as he said this, Hu Benshan's face stiffened. His eyes darkened. The faces of the people of the Snow Palace, led by Yuan Jibai, also darkened. Haha, Miefun, you think too much. How can Hu Benshan be your opponent? Yuan Jibai said with a smile. If that's the case, then let him kneel down and apologize. The people of the Chaos Temple are not people that anyone can offend. Hu Benshan is just a junior. How dare he be disrespectful to me? He's too bold. Chapter 1566. Take you away. Yuan Jibai's pretty face stiffened. Standing behind Yuan Jibai, Xiujia's eyes widened as he stared at Zhuowen. Miefun was too much. He actually wanted him to kneel and apologize. This was too much. Miefun, so what if you're a disciple of the Primal Chaos Temple? I, Xiujia, have already handed over 5,000 years of burning flame nectar. Why are you still so aggressive? Xiujia was so angry that he trembled. Yuan Jibai's pretty face turned ugly as she said, Little friend Miefun, you're pushing your luck. Xiujia has already handed over the burning flame nectar. Why are you still forcing him? Zhuowen sneered. The Primal Chaos Temple cannot be blasphemed. Xiujia has looked down on me many times. This is disrespect to me, and the Primal Chaos Temple behind me. I didn't break his legs and only asked him to kneel and apologize. This is already the greatest tolerance. Of course, if Xiujia doesn't want to submit, I don't mind using force. As he spoke, Zhuowen clenched his right hand. The soul-devouring magma river soared into the sky and covered the sky, turning into an endless river of magma. Lo's Lu Si and Mai's approached step by step with the three sacred mountains. Killing intent instantly filled the surroundings. Just the aura emitted by Lo's and the other two was enough to make many people tremble in fear. Perhaps, even if all the forces present were to join forces, they might not be a match for Liao Si and the other two. The only ones that could contend against them were the overlord forces of the four great regions, the Burning Sky Sect, the Snow Ice Palace, and the Ferocious Tiger Sect. Xiujia, why don't you kneel and apologize? After all, things have escalated to this point. It doesn't benefit anyone. Do you want everyone to be dragged down because of you? Tiger Break couldn't help but ask Xiujia when he saw the killing intent surging in Miefun's eyes. Tiger Break is right. Nephew Mu only needs to apologize, and everything will be resolved. Why not? Tiger Collapsing Mountain said slowly. Zhou Tianzong's eyes flickered. He looked at Yuan Jibai and said softly, Jibai, in order for this marriage to continue, I don't think we need to make a big deal out of this, right? Yuan Jibai's pretty face froze. She then said in a deep voice, I understand. After that, Yuan Jibai turned to look at Yu Zhe and said, Yu Zhe, for the sake of the big picture, I can only wrong you for now. Baozi took a step back, his face pale. He knew that Yuan Jibai and Zhou Tianzong had compromised again. Taking a deep breath, Xianzi forcefully endured the humiliation in his heart. With a plop, he directly knelt on the ground and faced the high and mighty Zhuowen. He said, Miefun, I, Xianzi, have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai previously. I hope you can forgive my unintentional mistake. Whoosh! The moment Yu Zhe knelt down to apologize, an uproar broke out in the crowd. No one expected that Yu Zhe would really kneel down and apologize. Zhuowen glanced at Yu Zhe indifferently, then his gaze fell on Mu Qinxue. He smiled and said, Saintess, look at Yu Zhe's cowardly appearance. How can he be worthy of you? I think you should just cancel this marriage. Letting such a trash be worthy of you is simply an insult to you. Creak. Xiu Zhe tightly clenched his fists. He felt extremely humiliated in his heart when faced with Zhuo Wen's mocking words. To insult him like this in front of his fiancée, where was his face? However, he did not dare to refute. He Miefun, you don't have to worry about this matter. After all, the marriage between our Burning Heaven sect and Snow Palace has already been set. Zhou Tianzong smiled. Zhuowen put on a fake smile and said, That's right. Since it's the Holy Maiden's big day today, as a guest, I naturally have to take out something as a gift for your wedding. As he spoke, Zhuowen slowly took out a 7-colored lotus flower from his spirit ring. In the middle of the lotus flower, a 7-colored pill quietly floated. If one looked carefully, the core of the 7-colored lotus flower was the 7-colored pill. As for the 7-colored lotus flower, It was just a manifestation of the seven-colored pill's majestic medicinal energy. Seven Spirits Celestial Pill? This can't be the Seven Spirits Celestial Pill, right? Zhou Tianzong could not help but exclaim when he recognized the Seven Spirits Celestial Pill in Zhuowen's palm. Could it be the rumored Seven Spirits Celestial Pill that can allow one to be reborn and reach the level of creation? This celestial pill is rare in the world. It is said that after consuming this Seven Spirits Celestial Pill, one can undergo 7 transformations and obtain a great creation. Hu Benshan and Yuan Jibai were both moved, their eyes blazing. This celestial pill was so great that even overlords like them felt a rush of excitement. Zhou Tianzong was even more ecstatic. Even the Burning Heaven sect might not be able to take out such a celestial pill. Miefen's intention to give it to Mu Qinxue made Zhou Tianzong even more convinced of Miefen's identity as a disciple of the Chaos Temple. As he spoke, Zhuowen slowly walked towards Mu Qinxue, holding the 7-colored lotus flower in his right hand. It was like a dream and the scene was extremely beautiful. Zhou Tianzong and the people of the Burning Heaven sect did not stop Zhuowen from moving forward. After all, how could they stop someone from giving something so valuable? This guy really came to the Burning Heaven city for the saintess. All men are the same. In the seats of the 9 saints' heavenly gate, Xia Bingyu looked at this scene and muttered to herself with slight jealousy. Junior sister, don't tell me you've taken a fancy to this Miefen? Han Yu suddenly said to Xia Bingyu with a smile. What nonsense are you talking about? I don't like men. I like women. Xia Bingyu was like a mouse that had its tail stepped on as she retorted to Han Yu rather agitatedly. Han Yu laughed and immediately said solemnly, We are not from the same world as him. If he really is a disciple of the Chaos Temple, he doesn't owe us anything. Instead, we owe him a big favor. Xia Bingyu was startled and fell silent. She sighed and nodded slightly. When Zhuowen finally arrived in front of Mu Qinxue, he slowly bent down and handed the 7-colored lotus flower to Mu Qinxue. He asked with a smile, Chen Shui, I specially prepared this 7-colored lotus flower for you. Do you like it? Mu Qinxue was startled. Her beautiful eyes first looked at the smiling young man in front of her. She could see the longing and pampering in the young man's eyes. She did not know why, but when she saw those eyes, she could not help but feel a trace of sadness in her heart. This 7-colored lotus flower is my gift to you as an apology. I'm really sorry that I couldn't bring you back last time. I know that you've done a lot for me, but I couldn't do anything for you. Because of my impulsive actions, I put you in a difficult situation. After saying this, Zhuowen slowly held Mu Qinshue's jade-like hand and gently placed the 7-colored lotus flower in her palm. Mu Qinxue subconsciously wanted to withdraw her hand, but when she saw those gentle eyes, she did not move her hand away. Zhou Tianzong and the others realized that something was wrong. Miefen's words were a bit strange. Based on his tone, could it be that he knew Mu Qinxue before? Hu Yanzi was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Mu Qinxue was his fiancée. Now his fiancée was actually holding a man's hand in front of him and accepting this man's gift. Hu Yanzi was simply mad. Do you still remember the story of Wu Sangui and Chun Yuanyuan? Zhuowen gently asked. Mu Qinxue was puzzled. She shook her head and said, What story is that? It's a very good story. It's a story that you like very much. Do you want to hear it? Zhuowen said with a smile. Yes, I want to hear it. Mu Qinxue nodded as a smile bloomed on her face. Zhuowen slowly pulled Mu Qinxue into his arms. This sudden turn of events made Mu Qinxue feel at a loss. She did not expect that the young man in front of her would suddenly hug her. But for some reason, being hugged by this person felt extremely warm and comfortable. What a familiar feeling. It's as if I've leaned into someone's arms before and listened to that person tell me a story. Mu Qinxue muttered in a low voice. She slowly leaned her head against Zhuowen's firm chest. This embrace made her feel warm and at ease. If she could, she wanted to stay like this forever. Wu Sangui, the commander of the Shanhai Pass, was furious just because Chun Yuanyuan was taken by Lu Zongmin. He refused to surrender to Li Zicheng and led the Qing army into the pass. Zhuowen slowly began to narrate the story of Wu Sangui and Chen Yuanyuan. His expression was focused and his eyes were like water. Hua! The moment Zhuowen and Mu Chenxue hugged each other, the burning heaven plaza burst into an uproar. Everyone looked at this scene in disbelief. Many people were even confused. The holy maiden of the burning heaven sect was as pure as ice and jade. She was as cold as ice and frost. Strangers could not get close to her. Even her fiancé, Yu Shiai's, did not have a good expression. But now she was hugging Miefan so intimately. You bitch! Yu Shiai's could not take it anymore. He was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted. Little friend Miefan, what is the meaning of this? Why aren't you letting go of Chen Shui? Zhou Tianzong's face became very ugly. A killing intent exploded from his body, and he could vaguely feel the strangeness of this Miefan. Who are you? Your story is very familiar. Your eyes are very familiar. And your aura is very familiar. Just who are you? Why can't I remember you? At this moment, Mu Chenxue suddenly raised her head. Her watery eyes were filled with sparkling and translucent tears, and 2 streaks of tears streamed down her delicate cheeks. When Zhuowen was narrating the story, Mu Chenxue's heart was completely moved. She could not control her tears from flowing down. She did not know why she was crying. Her heart was filled with panic. Panic that she had forgotten an important person. Who was that person? She did not want to forget. Zhuowen did not care about Zhou Tianzong. He leaned over and kissed Mu Chenxue's white forehead. His hands tightly hugged her and he gently said, I am Zhuowen. Chen Shui, perhaps you have forgotten me, but I will never forget you and I will never let you forget me. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.